Had a decent amount of preseason games going today. Treylon Burks just left the field with a wrist injury. Y'all know we have drafted a crap ton of Treylon Burks, so hate to see that happen, but going to be happy to hop in some real money fantasy football drafts here. Be happy to probably be the worst drafter in this room, as I know this is going to be a very tough room. Overall, 107, I'm imagining we're going to go ahead. We're going to get Stephon Diggs here. I mean, I think that Austin Eckler's a lock now at 6, given the Isaiah Spiller injury. I mean, before the Isaiah Spiller injury, I was taking Stephon Diggs at 6 on Underdog because the running back value that you could find later on, honestly, kind of had to go wide receiver early. But I'm assuming that we have Eckler locked into 6 now, and that's going to allow us to take Stephon Diggs at 7. But before we get any further, let me go down there and have you drop that like on the live stream. Subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. If we hit 90,000 subscribers before the season starts, we are going to go ahead and fire up a 24-hour live stream. We already live stream 3-4 hours every single night, getting these real money fantasy football drafts underway. But like I said, if you want to see a 24-hour one, it would be difficult. I'll admit that. But what's very surprising is seeing Caden come away with Cooper Kupp here at 5, as you have Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase off the board. So I'm imagining we're going to go ahead. We're going to get Stephon Diggs. As I said, Austin Eckler. Now, very rarely. Oh my gosh. Okay, so Eckler does fall. We were going Diggs at 7, but now that Eckler falls, I wasn't taking him before Diggs in a league where you had to start 3 wide receivers before the Spiller injury, as we already discussed. But I think now at this point, we probably have to go ahead and take Eckler here. I think there's some serious red flags with the profile if we're looking at the overall touchdown regression that he's going to have. Like, I can pretty much guarantee you that Austin Eckler's not scoring 20 touchdowns again this upcoming season. We are worried about added in overall competition to the running back room with Isaiah Spiller and a couple other depth running backs. But I think that second red flag is not as scary now. But thank you so much for everybody coming out here. Cito asking, is this a $250 draft? No, this is not a $250 draft. It's just a $3 private draft, obviously with subscribers of the channel. That way we can warm up, and we will get a $250 draft going tonight. Okay, so let's move this down. Diggs at 8, Dalvin Cook 9, Devontae Adams goes 10. Okay, so yeah, you are expecting those wide receivers to go at this point. I mean, I think that we are going to be looking wide receiver in round 2, whether that's going to be a CeeDee Lamb, which Lamb, we actually saw him fall in the $250 draft last night. We saw him fall to the middle of the second round, which was very surprising in that CeeDee Lamb's usually a lock here at the 1-2 turn, especially in this format. But if CeeDee Lamb falls to us at 18, I'm not going to complain, but no, he goes at 13. Master Y says, you're right, Eckler's not scoring 20 touchdowns this season. He's scoring 30. Oh. And my friend, I got bad news if that's your expectation for Austin Eckler this upcoming season. There's no way Eckler scores as many touchdowns this year as he did last year. Now we have Saquon Barkley, Travis Kelce off the board here in the middle of the second round. Let's swing this back. So you have Alvin Kamara going 16. So I'm assuming that we are going to get Deebo Samuel here to pair up with Austin Eckler, the one in our first and second rounds. Okay, here this team decided to go Stephon Diggs in the first. So I think it would be a natural spot for them to go ahead, for them to grab DeAndre Swift when you have Swift going behind Barkley and Alvin Kamara at this point. Aaron Jones goes, you know what? Never mind. I thought we were going Deebo Samuel, but very rarely are you getting DeAndre Swift falling to this point. So let's go ahead. Let's take another running back that's going to be highly involved as a pass catcher. And I guess we have to lock ourselves into wide receiver in the 3rd. Wide receiver in the 4th round is almost the 100% you're going wide receiver in the 4th. Unless possibly we get Keenan Allen or Mike Williams falling to us at pick 31. And then instead we may go with Justin Herbert as the double stack at pick 42. But Mark Andrews goes to the Derrick Henry team there at 6. Deebo Samuel ends up falling to Caden. Caden starting off Cooper Kupp and Deebo Samuel. I think you can be very excited about that. Chef Joe says, I finally got in one of your drafts. Happy to have you out here, my friend. And Blonde's Head says 24-hour stream. I'm not going to lie to y'all. I said this in the video today. I literally put out that challenge saying, okay, we'll do a 24-hour live stream if we hit 90,000 subscribers on the channel, because I thought there was a 0% chance it was happening. maybe a 1%, maybe a 2%, I thought it was highly unlikely that it was going to happen. But yesterday we had 750 subscribers. We've had over 700 over the past 3 days. I think we need to average 500 and we get there. So it looks like it's happening. I did not expect this, but obviously can't complain. I don't know how we are going to make a 24-hour live stream work. I don't know if I've stayed up for 24 hours since I was like 11 years old. It's going to be interesting. Okay, so AJ Brown off the board here, 24. Going with Nick Chubb, 25. I think at this point, like we said, I mean, in years past, I think Nick Chubb was a highly overdrafted player, but when you're getting him at the beginning of the third, and when we're looking at the wide receivers in this tier being comparable to what you'll have later on, I am going to be fine taking Nick Chubb at the beginning of the third round. Kyle Pitts here as well. Kyle Pitts has been one of our most drafted early round picks so far this offseason, but usually used to be able to get Kyle Pitts there in the middle of the third to the end of the third. He has definitely been rising up. Tyreek Hill going off the board here at 27. So it looks like we are going to be locked into a wide receiver at 31 once you have Nick Chubb off. I mean, if Nick Chubb would have fallen to us at pick 307, we would have gone his direction. But yeah, it looks like we're going to get one of these Los Angeles Chargers receivers. You know what? If we don't get Keenan, I would actually probably prefer bringing DJ Moore in here. No, we are going to get Keenan Allen. Now, this puts us in a difficult spot in that we obviously need to add wide receivers in this format where you have to start 3 of these guys. But at the same time, we kind of want to bring in Justin Herbert now for that double stack with the Los Angeles Chargers. And I will say, if y'all want to get in our next draft, literally we do this every single night in the live stream, make sure you go to the link in the description. Go sign up for Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy's best ball draft, so it's no time commitment at all during this season. That's how I've been able to draft over 700 of these teams, or at this point 600. We will get to 700 this offseason. No time commitment during the year. And when you sign up with promo code FLOCK, they're going to match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to 100. You're going to get our 2022 fantasy football rankings. You're going to get our 2022 fantasy football draft guide. And of course, you're going to support the channel. Okay. So B-Boy says, better double scoop the pre-workout. I'm legitimately probably going to have to just be sipping on pre-workout for 24 hours. Like, maybe we're not going to start it off that way, but about hour 12 in, we're probably going to have to start introducing some caffeine, and I don't know. It's going to be tough. Jalen Waddle off the board here, pick 35. Usually we are really hoping that Jalen Waddle makes it to us in the 4th round, which sometimes does happen. If we are drafting in the public lobby, like if we're drafting in a high stakes $250 league, then yes, we can sometimes sneak Jalen Waddle, like pick 40, pick 41, pick 42. But when we're drafting with people on this live stream, I mean, very rarely are you seeing anybody let Jalen Waddle make it past this point. Now, Josh Allen and Gabriel Davis there at the 3-4 turn. Y'all know I'm not a massive fan of Gabriel Davis at this price point, but to go ahead, build him up with Josh Allen, get that correlation in there. I think it does make sense. And obviously, just a great value on Josh Allen at pick 36. Wolf coming out says, what are your favorite 2 to 3 turn picks from the first spot? Would you be opposed to Mark Andrews and Michael Pittman, maybe Mike Evans or Keenan Allen? So it's really going to depend on your league format. So on Underdog Fantasy, where these wide receivers are going to slide up boards, there, yes, I'm going to be a lot more willing to just go ahead and say, take a Mike Evans. And then, of course, I'm always going to love Mark Andrews regardless of the format. But say you were playing in a shallow redraft league instead, where you can only start 2 wide receivers in 1 flex spot. And we know your casual drafters aren't going to be pushing up these wide receivers in the middle round, so you can easily find value later. If you're playing in that shallow redraft format, I probably would prioritize going ahead and getting a running back, whether that's Leonard Fournette or Nick Chubb at the 2-3 turn, combined with Mark Andrews. If you're playing on Underdog, where wide receivers are going to be harder to come by, then I would be fine just going ahead and taking the receiver. Now, I don't necessarily know if Michael Pittman's exactly my guy. I'm not a massive fan of Michael Pittman. I would probably prefer grabbing someone like T. Higgins here, who goes after Pittman. Okay. Now we have Ezekiel Elliott off the board, pick 44. So Caden honestly has a very interesting start. Ezekiel Elliott is not someone I've been drafting at all. Obviously, he does fall considerably past his ADP, but Zeke falls in almost every single flock draft. I don't think anybody here is a massive fan of Ezekiel Elliott. So usually you do get him falling to about pick 44. Has an ADP of 39. I mean, you start wide receiver with a very strong core of Kupp, Deebo Samuel, and T. Higgins. So I think you're probably in a pretty good spot. Considering the fact that this is going to be a private draft, I think you'd be fine going ahead and taking a Hollywood Brown there at pick 44 because the additional production you're going to get through the first 6 weeks. But of course, if you're looking at these private drafts compared to what you have in tournaments, you're more incentivized to go a little bit more running back heavy here in a private draft just among these 12-team drafters than you would be in a tournament draft where you have to consider the entire field and the overall interaction that weeks 15, 16, 17 will have with your expected value. Okay. Universal says, Mason, I'm Will Clap 22, picking at 8. Okay, let's go through. Let's check out Will's team. Diggs in the first. Love Diggs in the first if we're going to be looking at the overall situation he's in Buffalo, combined with the talent profile that he has. Like I said, I thought that we were going to end up going with Stephon Diggs before we had Austin Eckler fall into us. And then Aaron Jones at 17. With Aaron Jones, I have gotten a little scared, just a little bit, based on the coach speak in Green Bay over the past few weeks, where it sounds like maybe A.J. Dillon has a better shot at securing the red zone role than I initially gave him credit for. So I recently did move DeAndre Swift over A.J. Dillon in our rankings, despite me going through and saying all offseason that the guy should be Aaron Jones because, Aaron Jones because he had that touchdown upside. But it is what it is. If you still want Aaron Jones, obviously I'm going back and forth between those guys every single day. DJ Moore 32, that's great. Love DJ Moore in this range. And then grabbing another wide receiver with Terry McLaurin. I used to not like the Terry McLaurin value that you had in drafts last season, but now with the improved quarterback play with Carson Wentz, I think you can be fine with it. So now you have a Breece Hall off the board here, 51. Let's see what we decide doing. Obviously, you have to be a little bit more concerned about Darren Waller. CC Play says, I'm starting to think Best Ball Mania won't fill up and will be refunded. My friend, unless I am mistaken, which I can't say 100% fact, but I'm very, very certain that there's no way that gets refunded. What happens is it's an overlay. So say Underdog Fantasy goes out there and says, hey, Best Ball Mania is going to have a $10 million prize pool. Here are the prizes. And not everybody joins, and there only goes like $9 million into the prize pool, and there were $1 million worth of entries not drafted. Then what happens is it's called an overlay. Then Underdog, since they guaranteed those prizes, Underdog has to go out there and they have to fill them. So if you want that overlay, you'd probably be excited to fire up some Best Ball Mania drafts. Now, at the same time, I would say that if drafters feel like that's going to happen, if they feel like there will be an overlay and there's going to be some added on money from the Underdog side of things, then that thing's going to get filled like that. Like last year, I thought there was going to be an overlay in the big dog drafts. Those are the $250 drafts on Underdog Fantasy. Like it was not even really that close to filling it all 2 weeks before the season. And then it ended up filling where there was no overlay. So I thought we were going to get some added money in the league pot, but it ended up not happening. Corey coming out says, how did I do in a 12-team half PPR draft? We got Kyler Murray, Devontae Adams, Michael Thomas, Joe Mixon, Travis Etienne, TJ Hawkinson, and Cam Akers of the flex. Personally, I really like it. I mean, if we're looking at this, you have possibly a top 5 quarterback, top 5 receiver with Devontae Adams, high-end wide receiver 2 potentially with Michael Thomas, running back 1, Joe Mixon. I think it's a strong team across the board. There's not too much for me to say. Maybe if we can pivot off like Michael Thomas and go get Hollywood Brown just so we can get some correlation in there with the Kyler Murray build. But in reality, it's a strong team. Strong team. Great draft. Okay. Now we have DK Metcalf off the board 60. A.J. Dillon goes 61. Let's swing this back around. At this point, we're not dying to have another quarterback make it to us when we go Justin Herbert in the 4th. Now, if we were to have Jalen Hurts, if we were to have Kyler Murray, I'd possibly go through and just take one of these guys. We took Darren Waller in the last round at tight end. Obviously, you're more concerned about Darren Waller than you were a few weeks ago, but I'm a simple man. I see Darren Waller in the 5th round. I draft Darren Waller in the 5th round. I'm trying not to overthink it here. Okay, so Bobby Rose on the clock. They have Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara, Travis Etienne, a running back. At receiver, they have Cortland Sutton and Rashad Bateman. So very similar to us. They are desperate for receiver at this point. I mean, we're probably a little more desperate with only having Keenan Allen, but we'll see what they decide to do. They go Jalen Hurts at 64. Will on the clock. Let's see if they decide to give us Kyler Murray. So far, Will has Aaron Jones, Stephon Diggs, DJ Moore, Terry McLaurin, and Chris Godwin. Chris coming out says, picking second in a 14-team full PPR redraft, how would you adjust the rankings or strategy in the middle rounds given the huge gap between picks? So in a 14-team league, I'm going to be significantly more willing to just go and punt tight end, understanding that there's not going to be as strong of value down there. Okay, sorry, 1 second. Let's look at the players we'll have on the way back around for us. Let's go ahead. Let's take Adam Thielen here. I'm not excited about it. I don't even want to talk about it. But yeah, going back to what we were looking at in a 14-team league, given the fact that it's going to be significantly harder to find quality wide receivers off the waiver wire, given the fact that the same time we know your league mates in your draft are probably going to push up running backs, that's going to be the format where I'm willing to pass on the elite level tight ends. Like even if a Kyle Pitts is sitting there at the 2-3 turn, I'm probably not taking Kyle Pitts. Whereas in like a 10-team league, because everybody's going to have access to running backs, everybody's going to have access to receivers. In that 10-team format, you're incentivized to do the exact opposite. You're incentivized to go out there and overdraft one of those elite level tight ends. Here, I'll just make sure we fire up our wide receivers. We have that baseline level production, and then we can hopefully hit on this year's Dalton Schultz. Okay. So now Kyle says Akers will not be good this year. He has had 2 good games in his NFL career. Why would he suddenly be great? Makes no sense. Okay. So let me look at this. I think you cannot look at a single thing that you have with Cam Akers last season. Obviously he came back 6 months removed from a torn Achilles. He probably shouldn't have come back at all. And to say he's had 2 games in his NFL career, I think that's a little disingenuous. Cam Akers over the past 6 weeks, 21 carries, 29 carries, 15 carries, 21 carries, 28 carries, 18 carries. Also, during that time period, he was averaging about 2.5, 3 targets a game. So, of course, not a great role as a pass catcher, but he's at least giving you something in that regard. He was a 5-star recruit going to Florida State. He was a great prospect coming out of Florida State. If we're looking at his overall athletic profile, if we're looking at his size, if we're looking at his target share in college, if we're looking at his NFL draft capital, everything that I look at to evaluate these running backs coming into the NFL, he's also the youngest running back in that 2020 draft class. So obviously Cam Akers is a player with a wide range of outcomes, but if we remember where he was being drafted last year before the torn Achilles, he had an ADP on Underdog literally in the late first. Mr. Steph says, maybe Mason isn't a monkey in the suit. This team looks nice. Oh, just wait. I will find a way to mess it up, my friend. Don't you think for a second that I am not a monkey in a suit, a clown in a suit, because we've already said that's what we are. You think I'm going to lie to you? My friend? Okay. So now we have Christian Kirk off the board here, 73. Honestly, if we're seeing Christian Kirk go this early, probably a good sign that we decided to grab Thielen. Obviously, we have Trey Lance, Joe Burrow going directly after us. Not necessarily too excited about bringing in either one of those quarterbacks. If we're looking at the fact that we took Justin Herbert, we don't have any 49ers. We don't have the option to grab any guys later on. Same thing with Cincinnati. I mean, maybe you can make the argument that we could have gone ahead and we could have taken Tyler Boyd in the 10th round, but that's not even a guarantee that he's making it back to at that point. Okay, so Chase Edmonds off the board here, 76. We are definitely wanting wide receiver value on the way back around at 79 here. If we're looking at the fact that right now we only have Keenan Allen and Adam Thielen. Amari Cooper off the board, 77. Y'all know I'm not a big Allen Lazard guy. There's someone else that I am looking for instead. CD's nuts on the clock goes Lance, Derrick Henry, quarterback, running back, receiver, Mike Williams, Allen Robinson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and has the elite level tied in with Mark Andrews as well. Russian Collusion says, so can you tell me any running back that's come back after a torn Achilles? Donta Foreman, my friend. Obviously, it's a long track record of failures after failures after failures. But at the same time, I'd say science is probably in a different spot than what it was 10 years ago. If we're looking at someone like Kevin Durant coming back, doing what he was able to do, if we're looking at James Robinson being good to go at the beginning of this season, looking at Cam Akers coming back 6 months after the torn Achilles and then getting an additional 6 months to rehab, I think if we're looking at data from torn Achilles with running backs from 10 years ago, we're probably doing ourselves a disservice. Now, I completely understand, trust me, I love looking at historical data, but at the same time, we do need to understand that it's a different situation that we are in 2022. Okay, so let's move this down. So after we take Devonta Smith here, who I understand is in a very bad situation. He's locked in as the second pass catcher in what last season was a run-heavy offense with not a lot of passing volume at all to go around. I understand it's a bad situation, but at the same time, you're looking at a player that, in my opinion, has the talent profile where he doesn't even belong with any of these wide receivers he's being drafted besides, other than Hopkins. I mean, with Hopkins, obviously, though, you had the 6-game suspension. And with the 6-game suspension, if this was going to be a tournament-style draft where we're optimizing for weeks 15, 16, 17, trust me, I'm drafting DeAndre Hopkins. But instead, when this is going to be that private draft, cumulative scoring weeks 1 through 17, in this kind of contest, it's so hard to get over the fact that you're not going to get the first 6 weeks there. Okay, so Dak Prescott off the board here, pick 87. Bobby on the clock. No tight end so far. Also has drafted Dallas Goedert. Would be interested to see if he goes ahead and just takes Dallas Goedert here at, he goes Hawkinson. I'll say I prefer Hawkinson in a vacuum over maybe I would have done the same thing. I definitely prefer Hawkinson in a vacuum. I just assumed that he would have gone Goddard with higher ADP as well when he has Jalen Hurts. But I think we are going to lock in either Hunter Renfrow or Tom Brady here, whoever this guy leaves us. I mean, at this point, I think the running backs are going to be very comparable to what we have on the way back around in the 9th round. We already have Eckler and DeAndre Swift. No real reason to grab another running back here if we don't love the value falling to us. So Rashad Penny off the board. Let's go ahead. Let's take Hunter Renfrow. I mean, I'm not a massive Renfrow guy. If we're going to look at the target share that we should assume Devontae Adams commands on this team, and if we also look at the breakout for Hunter Renfrow at the second half of the season last year, you're looking at a wide receiver that I think the majority of the volume was driven just based off the fact that, hell, you had the injury to Darren Waller, but at the same time, we took Darren Waller earlier on, so if we want, we could possibly go with a Derek Carr in the 10th round. We could get that double stack there at quarterback. Okay, so let's move this down. Self-Made Fantasy says, Fields looking sharp with 3 touchdowns in the first half with Cole Kmet catching 1. Okay, I saw the first touchdown for just, I did not see yet 3 of these. Let me pull this up. Obviously, we're just box score scouting at this point. Yeah, 14, 6. Oh, that is, he is looking sharp. Jacoby Brissett, on the other hand, we are box score scouting. This doesn't mean anything. But the biggest takeaway I have here is, how did I not know this? This is probably the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened on live stream. Like, y'all remember the one time we drafted one wide receiver through the first 9 rounds? That was Kadarius Toney. This is more embarrassing than that. How did I not know Dante Pettis is on the Chicago Bears? We just found our new 18th round selection, ladies and gentlemen. Who cares if he doesn't make the team? Just from a name value perspective, I feel like we got to go with him. I feel like we have to. Okay. So now, Sky Moore, Robert Woods going off the board here at the end of the 8th. I mean, at this point, I think that we have caught up enough with receiver when we have these 4 guys here where it doesn't really matter too much of what we see after this. Like, if we were to get a running back falling that we like at pick 103, like if we get Miles Sanders at 103, obviously nobody wants to touch Miles Sanders. I completely understand why, but given the receivers he would be going right before, I would be fine taking the running back in that range. B-Boy says Dante Pettis is a bum. I understand he is my friend. It was a joke. Okay, so Tyler Lockett off the board. Let's move this over. So like I said, you did have the wrist injury for Treylon Burks. Let's see if we have any other news with him. So Burks was forced out of Saturday's preseason game finale against the Cardinals with the wrist injury. Burks is presumably done for the evening as a result, and his status will need to be monitored in advance of week 1. Oh my gosh. What an offseason for Treylon Burks. Though I have been drafting Treylon Burks in this range. I've been excited to draft Treylon Burks. He is one of my most drafted receivers in fantasy, given the upside that I think he can have through the final 3 weeks of the season. But at the same time, I think you probably see him falling a little bit further now after this. I think you probably do. What's the report on Antonio Gibson not slated to play? Gibson isn't expected to play in Saturday's preseason game at Baltimore. Joining Gibson on the sideline are fellow Commanders running backs J.D. McKissick and Brian Robinson. Oh, and Jonathan. Who are they playing then? Interesting. Who's returning kicks if Antonio Gibson's not in the game? Who is returning kicks if they don't have Gibson in there? Okay. So Melvin Gordon off the board. Do we go ahead? Do we just reach on Derek Carr, make sure that we get that double stack with Hunter Renfrow and Darren Waller? Let's do it. If this was a tournament style draft, y'all know I try to get as greedy as possible in those tournaments when we have to consider the rest of the field, when we have to just think, oh, okay, well, another team's going to have the same stack and they're going to get at a cheaper cost. When we have to consider that in the back of our minds, yeah, I'm probably going to go ahead. I'm going to pass on Derek Carr. I'm going to roll the dice that we get him on the way back around and pick 114. But knowing that the Devontae Adams team's after us, looking at all those teams only having one quarterback, I think that there would have been a decent shot. Derek Carr actually went off the board. He fits this roster construction perfectly. We're only going to have to draft 2 quarterbacks now. So let's take him. It's an awkward spot to be in. Hopefully we get a running back that we like on the way back around at 114, but we'll see. We'll see. Okay. Mercury coming out says Antonio Gibson, the running back 1 of special teams premium leagues, guys. Here's what you want to do. I cannot believe this has not been something that the big fantasy football channels have not come out and talked about. Like, you know you're a fraud if you have not brought this up. The easy correlation you can get in. You draft Antonio Gibson and you draft Washington's DST. That way, when Antonio Gibson goes out there and he gets that punt return touchdown, not only are you getting 6 points for Antonio Gibson, you're getting that punt return touchdown with that DST as well. Like, it's a no-brainer. Obviously, on Underdog, we can't do it. You don't draft defenses. But if you're in your regular league, come on. Come on. Talk about stacking up those special teams points here. Okay, obviously a joke, guys. Obviously a joke. Okay, don't go overboard with that. Now, we have Antonio Gibson, James Cook, Cordell Patterson, Damian Harris all off the board. With James Cook, he's probably my favorite running back out of this group. But the issue with Cook is, obviously, we're a lot more excited about his ceiling in the second half of the season if he can take control of the red zone role in Buffalo, which isn't guaranteed. We know he's going to be a pass catcher here no matter what. But if he could somehow take control of that red zone role, I think we'd be very excited. Now, at the same time, that shouldn't be your expectation for early on in the season. And with these leagues being cumulative scoring weeks 1 through 17, it is going to be much more difficult for us to go out there and make that call. Cole Kmet going off the board here, 111 after the touchdown. So after this, there are not too many players I'm excited about grabbing. Usually I feel like we're in no man's land here where, I mean, yeah, maybe I'm excited to go ahead and take Garrett Wilson. But as we've already discussed, in this format, I think he's a whole lot less appealing. Let's go ahead. Let's take Rondale Moore here. I mean, with Rondale Moore, I think it makes more sense when it's cumulative scoring weeks 1 through 17 rather than having that fantasy football playoff stretch. Because I think his ceiling is going to be capped specifically for weeks 15, 16, 17. If we're going to assume that DeAndre Hopkins is healthy and DeAndre Hopkins is getting at least a 24% team target share in Arizona, which historically speaking, he's been well ahead of that. But I think that we can assume some natural regression given his age, given what we saw last year combined with the PED suspension. So in a tournament style draft, I don't love Rondale Moore here. In a cumulative scoring style where if he has that expanded role through the first 6 weeks of the season, it's going to really help us out. Let's go ahead and take him. If it was a league with the fantasy football playoffs where we're looking for that upside later on in the year, I do decide to go Garrett Wilson here instead. Okay. Now we have Brian Robinson off the board here, 119. Let me go ahead and show the draft board for anybody just now coming in. If you are just now coming into the live stream, make sure, fix your life, go down there, drop a like on the stream. It helps us out so much. So here we decided to go Austin Eckler, DeAndre Swift in the first and second round. Followed it up with Keenan Allen in the third, then getting the double stack with Justin Herbert, Keenan Allen, and Austin Eckler in the fourth. Darren Waller in the fifth. I mean, with Darren Waller in the fifth, obviously Darren Waller is sliding down draft boards for good reason. But at the same time, I think it's good enough value where it's going to be very hard for me to go ahead and pass up a Darren Waller pick 55. We have Adam Thielen, Devonta Smith, Hunter Renfrow going directly after. Then we get Derek Carr to get the double stack between Hunter Renfrow and Darren Waller as well. Go Rondale Moore, 114, just because I have no idea what the hell to do. Hence, can't just say, oh, Garrett Wilson's a great player. Maybe he overcomes the situation in the second half of the year. Okay. What's the Russell Gage report? Is he still dealing with the injury? Okay. Unlikely to play. I don't think anybody was ever assuming Russell Gage was going to play. But I mean, I think that we probably have to go ahead, take Joshua Palmer here on a Justin Herbert build, even if we prefer Russell Gage in a vacuum. Like, with the context of this team and the fact that we have Justin Herbert, let's take Joshua Palmer if he falls. If CD's nuts decides to go ahead, take Joshua Palmer, then sure, we'll go Russell Gage. So Gallup off the board. I actually really like the fact that Gallup is sliding up here. Michael Gallup had been a player that we were drafting a crap ton of over the past month because, yeah, he's probably going to miss the beginning portion of the season, but I think he'll be back by the time we get to the bye weeks. I think he'll have the elite level ceiling if we're looking at the Dallas Cowboys offense, the pace of play, the passing rate over expectation for the final 3 weeks there. So I really like seeing Michael Gallup slide up draft boards. To be completely honest, I still think Michael Gallup's probably a little bit undervalued here when now we have news that he's not going to be on the PUP. So let's move this down. Henry says, I miss those days of getting Brian Robinson in the 18th. Don't lie to yourself. Trust me, I was drafting Brian Robinson a decent amount at end of drafts, but you weren't getting Brian Robinson in the 18th. You were getting him in like the 16th. Brian Robinson was like a 16th round pick. I think we've been drafted, like literally in a draft every single day, besides maybe 2 when we were in Alaska, but pretty much every single day that Underdog has had these launched. And I never really remember Brian Robinson in the 18th. I remember Brian Robinson in the 16th. Okay. So now we have Isaiah McKenzie, Devontae Parker, McCole Hardman, Russell Gage all off the board here. I would have been very excited about getting Russell Gage on the way back around. At this point, I think that it is time that we go ahead and go with a different position unless Jahan Dotson falls. Through the report not playing. Okay, I don't really care about those reports. So Jahan Dotson off the board. Y'all know I am a pretty big fan of Pat Freiermuth. I would be happy to go ahead and take Pat Freiermuth here as their second tight end. Unsure if this team's going to let us get him. Their tight end right now is Zach Ertz. They've gone through, they built around that Arizona Cardinals offense. They go Freiermuth, so we're not getting him. I think Alberto is a teardrop down. I think the tight ends that we're going to be looking at on the way back around are about the same. Let's go ahead. Let's actually take Michael Carter here. I think with Michael Carter, he's going to be more appealing in this format as we're discussing, where we don't have to optimize for the final 3 weeks of the season. Instead, it's just who scores the most points throughout the entire year. And if we're going to assume that Michael Carter has the expanded role before Breece Hall takes over this upcoming season, I think he's a fine selection if we're going to get him in the middle of the 12th. I probably prefer Pat Freiermuth to go ahead and get that second tight end and not have to take another guy the rest of the way. But let's go ahead. Let's take Michael Carter here, 138. Henry says, now you're going to have to make me look it up. Robinson at 18. Okay, maybe you got him there once, my friend. Maybe you got him there once. I'm saying it was not a regular thing. It was not a regular thing. Herbert off the board at 139. I mean, we still kind of need running backs on the way back around. Obviously, we are only sitting with a room of DeAndre Swift, Austin Eckler, and Michael Carter. But I still think that we are going to be fine at running back if we're looking at the top-level investment that we made into those two guys. Okay. So we have Isaiah Pacheco off the board at 140. James Robinson goes 141. Please let me know, who do you want? Like, go to the live chat right now. Please let me know who you want between James Robinson and Isaiah Pacheco. Let me know. Let me know. First name says, bro, your teeth are so perfect that it's distracting. My teeth are gross. I promise you. Maybe the lights make them look good or something. No, don't think that my teeth are perfect. Okay, so James Robinson, Isaiah Pacheco, J-Rob, Pacheco, J-Rob, Pacheco. I have been very hypocritical, I think, with my evaluation of Isaiah Pacheco, because I'll be the first person to admit I was fine drafting Ronald Jones in this same range. Like, I was out here drafting Ronald Jones in this same range. Y'all know I love Clyde Edwards-Helaire in the 8th. I was taking both of these Kansas City Chiefs running backs saying, you know what? I don't think either of these guys are talented, but at the same time, if we look at the situation that they're stepping into, I don't necessarily think it matters. I think we can just go ahead. We can hammer them in here. And now Isaiah Pacheco clearly is the running back 2 in Kansas City, or at least looks like that on paper. And I'm coming out here saying, oh no, 7th round rookie running back out of Rutgers who was not even efficient in college is probably going to be a very bad NFL running back. Like, if I was drafting Ronald Jones in this same range, it seems very hypocritical. Even though when I drafted Ronald Jones, I said out loud, he's a bad running back. I don't care. He's going to get touches in the Kansas City Chiefs offense. That's valuable to me. I want to take him. If that was my analysis with Rojo, even if I think Isaiah Pacheco should be a bad running back, if he's in that same exact role, literally nothing has changed. So if I was fine drafting Ronald Jones in this range, I should be fine drafting Isaiah Pacheco. I feel like I'm being a hypocrite with this. But Brandon coming out says, do you update your rankings? Got rankings in June. Yeah, so if you got our 2022 fantasy football draft guide by signing up to Underdog Fantasy and you used promo code FLOCK, if you want those updated rankings, just make sure that you send me an email. You can find my email address in the link of this. In the description of this. You can find the link to join Underdog Fantasy there. And just shoot me an email, say, hey, Mason, can I get the updated rankings? The email address I use to sign up for Underdog Fantasy with promo code FLOCK is johnny123@gmail.com. Give me that. I'll be happy to give you the updated rankings at literally any time. Just email me. May take me a couple hours to get back to you, but I respond to those emails at the minimum once every 24 hours. Okay, so Mike Gesicki off the board, 155. Gesicki has been someone that I've been buying the dip on. Mr. Steph says, Mason, is this a private or a big dog? This is a private draft, and if we fire up another one after this, it's probably going to be another private draft, considering the fact that I just joined the $250 draft lobby on Underdog and says 11 spots to go, so I'd imagine that won't fill for like another 45 minutes. So if y'all want to see another draft, make sure you go down there, drop a like in the live stream. We had 300 likes in the stream. We will fire up another one. And if you want to join that next one, go to the link in the description, go to the link in the live chat, go sign up for Underdog, use promo code FLOCK. You'll get our draft guide, which will help you even if you've already had your draft. You'll get our rankings, and you will get a 100% deposit match. So it's essentially free to try out. Okay. So we have Zamir White off the board, 159. Obviously, it's very difficult to take Isaiah Spiller in this range. Even if we would get Corey, it doesn't really matter. We already have so many pieces of this Los Angeles Chargers offense that I don't feel like we have to go ahead and reach on any Chargers at this point. I mean, I know that smart people would probably say, Mason, you took Herbert. You got to take Gerald Everett. In reality, when I already have Austin Eckler, Keenan Allen, Joshua Palmer, there becomes the point where I'm like, okay, if I've already bet on all these guys, do I really need Everett here? Now, with that being said, now that you have David Njoku off the board, I probably go ahead and I take Everett. It's not necessarily because I want another Los Angeles Charger. It's more like, okay, well, I need another tight end. Right now, we only have Darren Waller. I think if we take Gerald Everett, we have the option, if we don't have another value that we like later on, where we can just go ahead, we can stop at 2, we can fire up. I know most people would say a 5 running back build, and I would say that's correct if you were playing in a tournament style draft where we need to be trying to just have the highest ceiling possible for the final 3 weeks. But since this is a private draft and we're only going up against the 11 other people here, I think we would actually probably still want to build around 6 RBs if possible, depending on the value that falls later on. I think that you have to definitely change your strategy from those tournaments to a private. Okay. Carly says, does Walsh have #1 golf potential? I'm not so sure about that, my friend. Not so sure. Sold by Show coming out. Thank you. Says Najee Harris over Derrick Henry at 107 in the Yahoo 12-team league. Both those running backs are in tier 2 for me. I mean, we've already talked in depth about those guys in that I think you can safely say they both have red flags, where with Derrick Henry, obviously a significantly worse offensive line that he's ever played with, 28 years old, doesn't catch passes. Like, Derrick Henry is not necessarily someone that screams guaranteed hit this upcoming season. But same thing with Najee Harris. Najee Harris, very bad offensive line. Najee Harris has never demonstrated the ability to create big plays, whether that's at his time at Alabama or Pittsburgh, given the fact that he doesn't really have that top end speed. We don't necessarily know what the offense is going to look like this upcoming year. So they both have their red flags. Personally, I had Najee Harris ranked before Derrick Henry, and that's going to assume a PPR format. If you're playing in a non-PPR, I think you could go Derrick Henry. If you're playing even in a half PPR, I think you go Henry. Trent Fletcher Band coming out. Thank you, my man. Says, advice on a 12-team Dynasty startup draft. Also coming to Austin this fall for Kill Tony and then playing shows in San Antonio. That is awesome. I love Kill Tony. Love to go see, even though if it's in the fall on a Monday, probably not possible for me, but still love to hear that. I would love to see it. And in a 12-team Dynasty startup, I will say, I'm not trying to plug anything here, but genuinely, I don't really promote this at all. So not many people know of it on the Redraft channel. We have the biggest Dynasty channel on YouTube. Like, I started playing Dynasty Fantasy Football 2014. That's how I got started on YouTube, is Dynasty Fantasy Football. That's my true passion. So if you look up Dynasty Football Flock, we actually just did a 12-team Dynasty startup, literally like 3 days ago on the live stream on that channel, Dynasty Football Flock. But if you're playing in Dynasty, it's very difficult for me to just give you advice that fits every single format. What I would say is you really need to take an in-depth look at the amount of roster spots you have, your starting lineup requirements, You already said there are 12 team in your leagues, and the scoring. Those three things are going to dictate so much in terms of what positions you're targeting and even the kind of guy you want at the end of your bench. Okay. So Alex coming out, thank you, my man, says, hey, Mason, need draft guide in the next 2 hours, but struggling to get it verification on Underdog. Doing the 9th pick in a 12-team PPR, 1 quarterback, 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, tight end, flex, defense, kicker. Okay, I'll say in this format in particular, you're pushing up elite level tight ends, and it obviously this is specific to this format, but because you only start 2 wide receivers and you have 1 flex, this starting lineup is so small that if you're playing in this casual league, it's going to be so easy for you to find wide receiver value later on. Where I would probably grab the elite level tight end while you can. I still definitely want to be coming away with a quarterback that has the upside to be QB1 overall, whether you think that guy's Kyler, Jalen Hurts, Trey Lance, whoever you like in that range. And then on top of it, I would say if you were trying to get our draft guide and you cannot sign up for Underdog, I am sorry. I'm on a live stream. I can't do too much about it. Let's take Evan Ingram. I mean, if we were playing in a different style draft, I think we're definitely done at 2 tight ends. But in this private draft, of course, it's because it's a private draft, not a tournament draft. I think we can go ahead and grab a 3rd tight end. But going back to what I was discussing, if you can't sign up for Underdog for whatever reason, you do have to verify that you're over 18 years old. We have the draft guide on flockfantasy.com. I'm very sorry, but I can't really do much about it. I would say reach out to Underdog support. They're super fast to get back to you, but in reality, if I was going to do anything, all I'd be able to do for you is reach out to Underdog support anyway. Okay. So now we have Deshaun Watson going directly after us. Deshaun Watson is someone that I've been drafting in the tournament style drafts where we think that he could be the quarterback 1 through that last 3-week stretch where obviously it matters so much. But here, for him to miss 11 weeks and then come back and actually be a league winning player for you in cumulative scoring, probably going to be too hard. And at least in my opinion, I think it's going to be too difficult to see that happening. Let me know, are y'all drafting Deshaun Watson here at 187? Now, Isaiah Likely off the board, 189. Isaiah Likely, definitely a fast riser given the preseason performance, but at the same time, someone that I'm not too excited about his potential to make an impact early on. What I would say is if you're playing in Best Ball Mania on Underdog Fantasy, where the majority of those drafts are already completed and nobody took Isaiah Likely, he's going to be at lower ownership across the entire tournament. So if he does somehow become a league-winning player, if he does somehow become this year's Dalton Schultz, a league-winning tight end from this range, not many people are going to have him in that tournament. So I think it makes sense to push him up in like Best Ball Mania, but in reality here in this private draft, you don't have those interactions with that. So I probably would not be too excited to draft him. Okay. So Brevin Jordan off the board. Alex coming out. Thank you, my man, says, hey, Mason, throwing you this one from Manchester, England. Thoughts on Kirk Cousins this year? I love loading up on wide receivers and grabbing him late. Thank you, of course, my man, for supporting from England. Dear God, never been over there. But the issue with Kirk Cousins is I think we can go out there and we can have a real conversation on him in formats where it matters. If you were playing in a best ball league, if you were playing in a super flex format, then yes, your projection on Kirk Cousins is going to be very important. But in reality, if you're playing in a shallow redraft league, if you're playing in a league where there's 12 teams and a shallow bench, so there are going to be a ton of quarterbacks on waivers, he simply doesn't have the upside to actually become a league-winning player. Because even if he doesn't have the rushing production, because he doesn't have the rushing production, even if he becomes one of the premier passers in the NFL, at the same time, you're not necessarily getting a player that can go out there and dominate from a fantasy football standpoint. And that if you look at Kirk Cousins last year, Cousins was top 5 in the NFL in passing, but at the same time, he was a low-end quarterback 1. And you can stream low-end quarterback 1 production regardless. So Cousins is not the prototype of a quarterback that matters at all in a casual redraft format. Now, I'd say if you're playing in that super flex league with Kirk Cousins, with Kevin O'Connell coming over, yes, I think the passing volume should be up, which, yes, you can be excited about that given the efficiency we've seen Kirk Cousins, especially with Justin Jefferson over the past 2 seasons. So super flex, I think you can get excited about Kirk Cousins, a high-end quarterback 2. In a shallow redraft league, in reality, it doesn't matter. Okay. But real quick, we are 40 likes away on the live stream from firing up another draft. So if you want another draft, make sure you go down there, drop a like on the stream. If not, no worries. We can keep this one short. I can save my voice for the 24-hour live stream we're probably going to have to do a week from now, 2 weeks. I don't exactly know. David Bell off the board. At this point, we're probably just going to go ahead. We're probably just going to grab a running back. Like, it's gross. We may end up taking someone that we didn't draft the other night on the live stream because I know a lot of people wanted us to go with him in the 18th round when we were looking RB, but the reason we didn't is I thought he didn't really have the ceiling for the final stretch of the year, even if he had a role at the very beginning of the season. But now if he has a role at the very beginning of the season, he actually probably can make an impact. If we're looking at wide receivers in this range, nobody really stands out. So let's go ahead. We're going to take Mike Davis here. I think Mike Davis, with the injury to Gus Edwards on the PUP, with J.K. Dobbins obviously recovering slowly, he can't have a role at the beginning of the season. I think we really only go with an extra running back here because it is that private draft, so we can go ahead and we get that 6th guy. But let's take him. And we are. Dre says, how did we do at pick 2? Okay, so let me see. CMC, Evans, Pitts, Judy, Juju. Okay, why did we go Russ here? Interesting. I would say, like, picks that stand out to me, I think it is very standard across the board. Jalen Tolbert's very tough to draft in this range. Now we know Gallup's not going to be on the PUP. Chark, I really love the Robbie Anderson selection. Love the Robbie Anderson selection. I like the fact that you go 3 quarterbacks, given the fact that this is a private draft and not a tournament. Overall, I think it's a strong team. I like the Robbie Anderson pick, not so much the Jalen Tolbert. But let's see. Harris says, Treylon Burks returned and caught a touchdown from Malik. You're saying Treylon Burks returned a TD and caught a touchdown? Let me look this up. As I look this up, we are 20 likes away from firing up another draft on the live stream. If you want another draft, make sure you go down there, drop that like. If not, no problem at all, guys. We can do an extra long live stream tomorrow night. Let's go through it. Okay, so Malik Willis did throw that touchdown pass to Treylon Burks. Okay, so Treylon Burks is back. Is Treylon Burks back in the game? Okay, because I think that last time I saw Treylon Burks left the game with the wrist injury with 2 receptions. Just pulled up this box score and Treylon Burks sitting at 3. Let me look this up to see if Treylon Burks is actually back in the game. Yeah, Treylon Burks back in the game, it looks like. Very, very excited to see that. Y'all know I've drafted a crap ton of Treylon Burks. I was going to be really worried if he was actually out for good, but thank God we have him back. I saw Derek was asking if we're getting a $250 draft. I just entered one, my man. There's 9 spots left. 9 spots left. So it looks like we're not doing that. I will set up a private draft real quick. If y'all want to join our next draft, it's going to be a $3 draft. Let me just grab this link for y'all. It'll say $3 draft here, and it's going to be a link in the live chat. It'll only be for people a part of the stream, of course, but let's grab this. Okay, just type $3 draft and sent that link out there. I'm so excited to hear that about Treylon Burks. I was legitimately terrified. Obviously, we've talked a lot about Burks as his ADP has just plummeted. On top of that, we've taken him in some pretty big spots. Like, there are a few players that, even if I don't have them in like 20% of drafts, just because out of pure dumb luck, I've ended up with them in a lot of high stakes drafts. The perfect example of that is going to be McCole Hardman, where with McCole Hardman, I guess I drafted him in the $1,000 draft I did, which is the highest stakes draft I'm doing this year. I did a $500 draft that I think I took him in as well. So even though his ownership percentage is very low across the board in all my drafts, because I get in a ton of $3 drafts, a ton of $5 drafts, because we took him in those super big ones, like drafting him once in $1,000 drafts, equivalent of drafting him 200 times in a $5 one. We're rooting for McCall this year just because we took him in that $1,000 league when we had Patrick Mahomes in the 5th. Very similar to, I think we had Mahomes in the 5th. Yeah, so I think Christian Watson's the other guy. Treylon Burks is another name that we don't have like 20%, 30% exposure across all our leagues. But simply because we went through and took him in those high stakes drafts, we are heavily invested. Okay. So Christian says, hey, Mason, looking forward to the 24-hour live stream. Had the 7th pick in a 2 running back, 2 receiver, double flex league. Went with Lamar, Brees, Pollard, Diggs, Lamb, Pitts, Michael Thomas, Bateman. What are your thoughts? I actually am completely fine with the double wide receiver start here, considering the fact we can start up to 4 guys. Y'all know I've been coming out in videos saying, you know what? When you're playing your boring casual redraft leagues, if you can only start 2 wide receivers and 1 flex, probably should not be going with the 0 RB strategy. Probably should not be hammering in receivers early on, just because the league format will say that it's very hard to overcome that. And I apologize to everyone here. I apologize to everyone. I accidentally set us up a slow draft. I accidentally set us up a slow draft. This is the slow draft on Underdog that has the little orange timer. This is the correct fast draft. So I'm so sorry for everybody who joined that last one. I am very sorry. Of course, we're going to have to do that draft off the live stream. It has like a 4-hour timer, so it's going to be a pain in the ass. But we'll get this one going. I am so sorry about that. We have Dog79 out here. I'm sorry, my man. Let me send out a new link to our new draft. This is a $3 one. And then going back to what we were discussing here. So I think in this format in particular, when you can start 4 wide receivers, great. Go Diggs, go CeeDee Lamb in the first 2 rounds. And then after that, getting some running backs with upside with a Brees Hall, with the Tony Pollard. You have the elite level tight end, Kyle Pitts, the elite level quarterback in Lamar Jackson, Michael Thomas, Rashad Bateman. So you're getting that correlation between Bateman and Lamar Jackson for that flex spot. I really like the team overall. Obviously, we're going to need help at the running back position, particularly early on in the year before you potentially have Ezekiel Elliott phased out of this offense down the stretch, or you have Brees Hall taking over as the running back 1, the feature down guy for New York. So I think it's a team with a crap ton of upside for the second half of the season. We're just going to have to figure out how to overcome the beginning part, but I'm sure you'll be able to do that just fine. Derek says, why have you been drafting so much David Montgomery? Let me figure out how much David Montgomery I've actually drafted. I feel like we have taken him a decent amount on the live stream as of late, just because he has been falling to the end of the 6th round. But earlier this offseason, I wasn't really drafting David Montgomery. So if you look at this, so we have been taking him in a lot of high stakes drafts as well. That's why the entry fees are going to look skewed compared to our overall ownership percentage. We've drafted 11% David Montgomery. I haven't taken a ton of him, but the thing is, it looks like we have over the past 2 weeks, because David Montgomery has become one of the most hated players in fantasy, where he's falling to the 6-7 turn. And when he's at the 6-7 turn, if we look at the opportunity cost compared to the wide receivers that are going to be in that range, where it's like David Montgomery or Amari Cooper, trust me, I understand the thought process that David Montgomery maybe has a cap ceiling, but at the same time, we're looking at wide receivers in that range with a very similar thought process. So we have drafted a lot more David Montgomery than we were at the beginning, when he was going in the beginning of the 5th round. So I think our ownership on Montgomery is fine at 11%, to be honest. Okay. Lightning says, CMC, Cup, Jefferson at the 102 and a 12-team at PPR. We start 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, and a flex. Then which tight end would you target at the 2-3 turn? Appreciate the info as always. Thank you so much for coming out here, my friend. I'd say this is the perfect question. 102, if you can only start 2 receivers, 1 flex, you can't even consider a wide receiver here. You can't consider a receiver. In this format, they're not going to dictate your win rate as you would see in a league like Underdog Fantasy. So I think we go ahead. I think we make the easy selection of Christian McCaffrey at 2. I mean, unless you're playing in a super flex format, almost regardless of the league that you're in, if we are on the clock and Christian McCaffrey's available, I'm taking CMC. The only instance I'm not is if Jonathan Taylor's there as well. And then I'll be fine taking JT. But let's go Christian McCaffrey in the first. Look for Mark Andrews at the end of the 2nd round. If we don't get Andrews there, you can pivot to whatever player you like in that range. But I do agree with you. I think we need an elite level tight end with a very shallow starting lineup like this. So we probably go Kyle Pitts in the 3rd. Okay. V Zepti says, do you think Best Ball Mania doesn't fill and we all benefit? Okay, we were talking about this at the beginning of the live stream. So if Best Ball Mania doesn't fill, from my understanding of it, if Derek's still out here, Derek will know for sure. He's not part of Underdog. I'm assuming he will. And I just can't say this because I don't want to be liable if I'm wrong, but I am 99% sure that there's just going to be an overlay with Best Ball Mania. If it doesn't fill, I think it fills. But say Underdog promised a $10 million prize pool and $10 million of prizes on Best Ball Mania. If, say, it ends with 50,000 teams not drafted and there's $100,000 missing, what ends up happening is Underdog has to pitch that in. It comes out of Underdog's rake first, and then Underdog has to create the overlay. So it's like a poker tournament. So if you join a poker tournament and there's $100,000 guaranteed and there are only $60,000 of entries, whoever hosts that tournament has to also throw in an extra $40,000. And it's a benefit for all players. But do not get excited. I do not think that's going to happen. I think that Best Ball Mania will fill, especially if it looks like there's going to be an overlay. Because if it looks like there's going to be an overlay, then trust me, guys, everybody's going to run and try to go grab that free money. Okay. It's going to fill, guys. It's going to fill. So now we have Devontae Adams off the board here at 12. Not too much to discuss if we're going to be looking at this draft board. You have some of these running backs falling like a Najee Harris. You have Travis Kelce, CeeDee Lamb falling as well. CeeDee Lamb goes 14. So you are going to get Travis Kelce down here as, I don't want to say as late as 15 because maybe Kelce even falls further than this. Now, if I see Travis Kelce pick 15, given the overall production we expect in Kansas City, given the positional edge you are getting with the elite level tight end, I'm taking Travis Kelce. I'm not thinking twice about it, but no. Dak Street Boys decides to go ahead and take Deebo Samuel to pair up with Joe Mixon instead. Very interesting. I think you could be incredibly excited when you get Travis Kelce this late in your drafts. But going back to what we were discussing earlier on the stream. So I know it seems like we've drafted a crap ton of Montgomery as of late, which as of late we have. We weren't drafting David Montgomery much when he was going at the beginning of the 5th round. But now that he's at the 6-7 turn and we've been taking him a ton in these drafts over the past 2 weeks, do y'all think my 11% David Montgomery is obnoxious? Is my 11% David Montgomery at the 6-7 turn in a lot of these drafts obnoxious? Let me know. Let me know. If I need to stop taking David Montgomery at pick 72, I'll do it. But we have him in 11% of leagues. Like about 8.5% is what you come to expect with just your average ownership percentage across all players. Okay, so we're going to go ahead. We're going to take Mike Evans here. I mean, with Mike Evans back at practice, I am somewhat concerned about what we have in Tampa right now with the offensive line turnover. Not only the offensive line turnover, but Tom Brady not being at training camp. It seems to be a lot of noise, but at the end of the day, people were taking Mike Evans to the 1-2 turn back when they thought that Chris Godwin was going to miss a large chunk of this season, and we had no Julio Jones here. Okay. So now we have Tyreek Hill off the board. So I think we're going to go with the 3 wide receiver start here. We're probably going to end up with T. Higgins, but if we get we get A.J. Brown, yeah. So a lot of people in these drafts, we have been very high on Kyle Pitts all offseason. So I think that you're going to see Kyle Pitts go earlier and earlier in these drafts that you see on the live stream. But if you're in a regular draft on Underdog Fantasy in the public lobby, I think you actually get Kyle Pitts probably a little bit after this. I think you actually probably get Kyle Pitts in the 3rd round. I was hoping that Pitts made it to us, but I'm not going to complain whatsoever when we get T. Higgins here at 17. Okay. Now we have A.J. Brown, 29. Personally, I could never think about taking Michael Pittman over A.J. Brown. I mean, we were even tweeting out some stuff about Michael Pittman earlier. There's no easier way to go through and rile some people up than having a Michael Pittman tweet. No easier way. Even though I will say we had a pretty funny tweet today. Let me show you all this. I know y'all don't care. I thought it was funny. But some people thought it was serious, which goes to show you what people think of me. But y'all got to tell me this is pretty funny, right? I thought it was a good one. I think you should give me some props on that. Okay, let's pull this back around. We have Keenan Allen, Josh Allen going there at 31 to stack up with Stephon Diggs. I think it makes a lot of sense. We're probably going to go ahead and get our elite level quarterback at the 4-5 turn as we always do in these drafts. James Conner off the board at 33. B-Boy says, that's good, Mason. Thank you. Thank you, my friend. Okay, so Mike Williams, Travis Etienne off the board here at the end of the 3rd. Mike Williams very rarely ever falls this far. Very, very, very rarely. Now, personally, I do have DJ Moore. I have Keenan Allen. I have A.J. Brown. I have those guys ranked before Mike Williams. So from a wide receiver standpoint, I think it's about the range he should fall. We probably would have taken Mike Williams in that last draft if we had the chance, just because we had Austin Eckler in the 1st. So we were wanting to go through. We were wanting to set up the double stack with the Los Angeles Chargers. Self-Made Fantasy says, James Cook drafted 30th overall on an underdog draft I'm in right now. Oh, very interesting, my man. Very interesting. Okay, so let's move this down. Ezekiel Elliott, 37. And of course, if y'all want to get in our next draft, everybody knows this unless you've been living under a rock. We're drafting on Underdog Fantasy. These are best ball drafts, so no time commitment at all during the season. I've drafted like over 600, going to be 700, especially if we have to do the 24-hour live stream because you don't submit your starting lineup, you have no waivers. So it's a very fun way to get some extra drafts in here, even if you've already drafted the main team that you're going to care about during the year. And when you go sign up for Underdog Fantasy with promo code FLOCK, you're not only going to get, obviously, the ability to draft with us in the stream every single night, but you are going to get our 2022 fantasy football rankings and our 2022 fantasy football draft guide, which should help you out even if you've already had your draft. But Hollywood Brown off the board here, pick 40. It's fine. I mean, I'm not necessarily dying to have a wide receiver make it back to us at pick 46. I think if we're looking at the overall board, we are going to be fine with a couple different options. Okay, so let's move this around. Lamar Jackson goes 43. Very interested to get Lamar. I'm assuming this is the team that took Mark Andrews. Yeah, the team took Mark Andrews. They have taken 0 running backs through the first 4 rounds. I'm sure that they're probably going to be looking at Dobbins on the way back in the 5th. At least personally, I would. Mark says, do you have Malik Willis moving up your board in what round? No. No. If you wanted to take Malik Willis maybe in a best ball mania draft where you're literally just looking to stand out from the crowd and have the elite level ceiling weeks 15, 16, 17, sure, go ahead and do it. But specifically in a casual redraft format, I don't think you can go through. I don't think you can draft Malik Willis. We're going to take Patrick Mahomes here, pick 46. Obviously, we're reaching a bit on Patrick Mahomes, but I think all these wide receivers are about in the same tier. We already have Jefferson, Mike Evans, and T. Higgins, so we're not dying to grab another receiver at this point. And I love grabbing the elite level quarterback at the 4 or 5 turn, whether that's Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, really whoever falls to us here. Now, Deontay Johnson off at 48. Jason says he got Darren Waller at 69 yesterday. Pretty nice value. Pretty nice value, my man. At this point, do we just have to go Gabe Davis? Let's go ahead. Let's take Gabriel Davis. I think that in your casual redraft league, if you're looking at where he's being drafted after the first 5 rounds, hell yeah, you can go through, grab Gabriel Davis. Very rarely do I ever take him on Underdog. He has an ADP at pick 40 because usually the Josh Allen team takes him on the way back around in the 4th. It is what it is. Let's go ahead. Let's take him. Obviously, he's falling a considerable amount here. And in a best ball format, he could get you those random spike weeks. Nigel coming out. Thank you, my friend. Says, strategy for a 12-team half PPR league standard. 1 tight end, 1 flex. Okay, so if we only have 1 flex, this is something that we've talked about maybe 5 times at this point on the live stream. But essentially, the fewer starting lineup spots you have overall, you are going to be more and more incentivized to go and get the elite level tight end, go and get the elite level quarterback, because you're not going to be able to play in the optimal wide receivers there in your flex spots to be able to overcome a deficit that you may have from a points per game standpoint at the tight end position or the quarterback position. So what I would do in a league where you only have 1 flex, in that format in particular, I think that we are decentivized to go wide receiver early, and instead we probably go ahead and grab the elite level tight end. We probably go grab the elite level quarterback and some running backs. Now, obviously, we do the exact opposite here in this Underdog draft, but that's because this is a league where you have to start 3 wide receivers, and then there's a flex, and it's best ball, so these wide receivers in the middle rounds are going to slide up. So let's go ahead. Let's take Jefferson, Mike Williams, Mike Evans, T. Higgins through the first 3 rounds in this draft in particular. Sean asking if we've gotten a $250 draft underway. We have not, my friends. We will if this draft room fills. We will if it fills. This is our second $3 draft. Okay. So A.J. Dillon off the board here, pick 58. Jalen says he picked Juju over Jalen Waddle and Michael Thomas. Okay, my friend. Calling someone a bum because he picked Juju Smith-Schuster over Jalen Waddle. I don't know what to tell you. please, I literally just went and saw one. Just went and saw one. If you have insurance, it's not going to be too much. Go see an optometrist. Go make sure you check your eyesight. Go see if you need contacts. Maybe you can even get laser so you don't even have to put contacts in every single day. If you go to the optometrist and they say, you know what, your vision's fine, you're completely good. Maybe you want to then call the Wi-Fi company. I don't know if maybe the screen's a little bit blurry and you can't see the numbers behind this. But Juju Smith-Schuster goes pick 47. Jalen Waddle went pick 38. Okay, so I think first, plan A, optometrist. Plan B, I don't know if you get your Wi-Fi through AT&T, Verizon. I don't know what you're getting your Wi-Fi through, but definitely call the Wi-Fi company. Tell them you need higher resolution on these YouTube videos so you can look at a draft board correctly. Okay. So now we have Trey Lance off the board here, pick 63. So obviously, I mean, if Lance would have fallen to us at the 6-7 turn, it would have been intriguing. We didn't have Kittle. We didn't have Debo. We didn't have the potential to take Ayuk. At least I'd imagine Ayuk would be off by the time we get back up on the clock at 70. And we already have Patrick Mahomes. So we're not like dying to take Trey Lance here by any means. So Darnell Mooney off the board. So let's see if we go ahead. We grab a running back. I'm not going to lie. I am the fish in the room drafting Josh Jacobs in the 7th round in a ton of these. A ton of these. Now we have Elijah Mitchell off the board, 67. So now that Elijah Mitchell's off, I think that we can probably get Josh Jacobs on the way back around in the pick, 74. He has an ADP of almost 77. So we probably just go ahead and take our 5th wide receiver here, and we're definitely going to be drafting 6 running backs in this league. Adam says, Treylon Burks is doing pretty good in the preseason game. Oh, guys, literally music to my ears. Music to my ears. Let's go ahead. Let's take Brandon Ayuk here as our wide receiver 5. We'll try to get Josh Jacobs on the way back around. If we don't get Josh Jacobs, honestly, I may even rather have Burrow. Get this second quarterback here in a best ball format to pair up with T. Higgins. Yeah, so I think we go Burrow, and if Burrow's not there, we go Jacobs. I think this is our plan. This is our plan. And if that doesn't work out either, we probably go London. If that doesn't work out, we probably go Dalton Schultz. Okay, so Drake London off the board, 71, so he's not going to be an option for us. Caden on the clock. Caden so far is Jonathan Taylor, Leonard Fournette, Tyreek Hill, Deontay Johnson, and George Kittle. Nigel coming out again. Thank you. Says, at pick 12, can you make the argument to go Kelsey's and Andrews back-to-back? I tried drafting like that once, and it didn't look that bad, and I had some trade value. Let me know. I would say, in a vacuum, I don't like the idea. In a vacuum, I don't like the idea unless you know your league mates. You know that they're going to overpay for Andrews. You know that they're going to overpay for Kelsey if you do it. In reality, if you look at historical hit rates, win rates, even when you do have those top-level tight ends providing you elite seasons, in reality, it's usually not a great idea to go ahead and to take Andrews, Kelsey at the 1-2 turn. I think in that shallow format that we talked about in particular, you go Kelsey running back. Kelsey running back. Mark, thank you for the kind words. I appreciate you, my man. Matt says Mason Treylon Burks got hurt. Hey, that's what I thought at the beginning of the live stream. At the beginning of the live stream, I came on here. I was sad. I was saying, oh my gosh, Treylon Burks left the game with a wrist injury. But he went back in. Treylon Burks went back into the game and caught a touchdown from Malik Willis. Hopefully we get an ADP bump soon because, let me see, how much Treylon Burks do I have? Like I said, I feel like this is a player that I haven't necessarily drafted like a ton. Like I feel like my ownership percentage isn't that high, but my entry fees are. Okay, so let me count this down. So from a percentage standpoint, he is my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12th most drafted receiver. But if we're looking at just entry fees instead of just overall percentage of drafts, which honestly I should probably care more about entry fees, he's my 3rd most drafted receiver. Yeah, so we're heavily invested into Treylon Burks. And the reason that we have, I would say one of the reasons we have a significantly higher investment with entry fees rather than ownership percentage is in these like $3 private drafts when he shouldn't have the role at the beginning of the season where it should be Robert Woods for that stretch. We've been taking Robert Woods over him in the private drafts, and we've been taking Treylon Burks in those tournament drafts where we need to optimize for the final stretch of the season. Ryan coming out says, just checking in to drop a like and say what's up. Can't stay long, but keep up, bro. No, thank you, Ryan, for coming out. Hope you have a great night, my friend. Okay, so let me go through, show off this entire draft board for everybody. Of course, I would not be drafting like this if it was just a regular casual fantasy football format. If it was a regular casual fantasy football league where you started one quarterback, two running backs, two receivers, a tight end, and a flex, this would be very bad. Very, very bad. But because it's going to be that best ball league, I think that we can go ahead and get away with this knowing the running back value that we'll find a little later on. So let's see what ends up happening. But I think we're going to be in a fine spot. I think we'll be in a fine spot. Obviously good for us to just see like Tom Brady and Dak Prescott going off the board here. And of course, in your regular casual fantasy football league, you're never going through and drafting Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow at the same time. Okay. Let's move this over. So Clyde Edwards-Helaire off at 88. CH would have been a running back that we would have been excited about getting. Used to be able to easily get the Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Patrick Mahomes stack there in middle round 5, middle round 8 for about 2 weeks. Just Clyde Edwards-Helaire had an ADP straight up plummeting. He's gotten a little bit higher as of late. Definitely a little higher. Now at this point, what's funny is we probably want the Kansas City wide receivers. Guys, this is a $3 draft. Let's see if this works out. We are going to do a $250 draft after this one. So let's try to warm up. Let's try to practice here and get a little more of a unique build and then see what happens for the next draft. Okay, so Kadarius Toney off the board. Let me see. What is our next draft? Yeah, we are 4 spots away, 4 owners away from filling that other league. MVS off the board, 92. Bobcat on the clock. Bobcat out here every single night in the live stream. Of course, thank you so much, my friend. I appreciate you. Rashad Penny off. Let's go ahead. Let's take Sky Moore. Let's get the correlation in here with Patrick Mahomes. Let's take Sky Moore. We'll get a running back on the way back around and pick 99. I'm confident that we'll get a running back. Kareem Hunt goes 96 to Caden. I do like me some Kareem Hunt in this range, so that definitely does suck. I think Hunt gives you a unique floor with his role on a week-to-week basis, and obviously the ceiling if anything were to occur in front of him. At this point, this is going to be a tough spot to be in, ladies and gentlemen. A tough spot to be in. Let's go ahead. Let's take Antonio Gibson here. I am not drafting Antonio Gibson over James Cook in a tournament-style draft where we expect James Cook to increase his role as the season goes forward. But in this draft in particular, I think Gibson's a fine pick here. It's not the best thing. We're just going to have to take a shot on a ton of different running backs that could have upside. That's what we're doing at this point. Taking shots on a ton of different running backs that have upside. But Zachary coming out, thank you, my friend, says, I got Adams, Samuel, Robinson, Waddle, Michael Thomas at wide receiver. Then we have David Montgomery, Antonio Gibson, Devin Singletary, Melvin Gordon as running back. We have Burrow, Winston at quarterback, and Matt Ryan. And Komet, Smith, Hooper as a tight end in a puppy 3 draft. Okay, thank you for clarifying that this was best ball, because I was going to say, okay, why are we rostering 3 quarterbacks here? I was assuming that this was a regular league. But okay, so if we're re-looking at this, I mean, obviously, you're probably in a pretty good spot at receiver. The issue is Montgomery, Gibson, and Singletary, they've all fallen down draft board since you did that puppy 3 draft. So I'm not going to lie to you, my man. I'm not a big fan of that team. I wish I could say otherwise, but I'm not a big fan of that draft. I just think that obviously like Montgomery's a running back that we're now getting at the end of the 6th in these high stakes drafts. And I'm fine taking him there, but it looks like you took him in the 5th in this one. And the same thing, it looks like you possibly took Antonio Gibson in the 6th. Yeah, I'm not a massive fan of that. Now, the Fiji Panini coming out says, thoughts on how the Niners will do this season. So we've talked about this a lot where I don't necessarily know exactly what to expect from Trey Lance himself. I think that Lance is going to be a great fantasy football quarterback, given the rushing upside that he has, given the situation he's stepping into. But I'm not confident coming out here and acting like, oh, he's going to just give so much upside for the 49ers from a real life NFL perspective. I think Lance could easily fail from an NFL perspective. We've been hyping him up over the past 2 years for fantasy football, given that rushing upside, very similar to Jalen Hurts. If we're looking at the Niners, they have such a good team overall, though. And at the same time, the division isn't that tough now that Seattle's just completely done. So I like the 49ers definitely to make the playoffs. I think they could potentially win the division. I think the 49ers will make the playoffs and win 0-1 playoff games. That's my prediction with the 49ers. But of course, I am an idiot, my man. Do not listen to me. I think that if you just go and look at Las Vegas lines and look at the over-under for San Francisco, they're going to give you a much better idea. Bobcat says, how am I doing on my first draft on Underdog? Oh, this is your first draft, my man. You're out here in the live stream with us every single night, and this is your first one. Let's check it out. Cooper Kupp, Javonte Williams. Personally, I'm going A.J. Brown over Michael Pittman, as we discussed earlier, but it is what it is. Herbert at 45, I'm fine with it. Obviously, when you take Herbert at 45, you're kind of hoping you get Joshua Palmer. You're kind of hoping that you're going to get Gerald Everett later on, but great pick in a vacuum. I like 5th round Cam Akers. We have Elijah Moore, 69, great value. Dalton Schultz, 76. Don't really love Dalton Schultz when he goes to the end of the 6th round, but if you're getting up here compared to the wide receivers available, especially where we're not that excited about taking Hopkins in this private draft format where we don't have the fantasy football playoffs, I like Dalton Schultz there, 76. Penny is someone that I have been avoiding in a league where we have the playoffs. And I know I'm so annoying when I talk about this, but it's something that really does matter, optimizing for the format that you're playing in. And I think Penny is going to be a lot more viable here with the role that he'll have in the beginning portion of the season with no Kenneth Walker in this offense. For this format, I'm fine with it. And then Lockett pick 100. So going and getting some correlation to that Seattle Seahawks offense. I like it. I like the team. Obviously, you're looking for some Los Angeles Chargers players later on when we take Herbert, but I think it's strong. Okay. Let's move this down. So at this point, we are just looking at in running backs. That's all we really need. Okay, so C6K goes Rondale Moore, 116. Bobcat on the clock. Let's see what they decide to do. Usually, I'm not a massive fan of going. I don't want to say too much. Cole Kmet off the board. Let's go ahead. Let's take Darrell Henderson as a running back 2 here. Just getting a running back that should draw touches on a week-to-week basis, and obviously would have upside for more if there were to be a Cam Akers injury in front of him. Okay. Zach says, when will there be another puppy draft? I can't guarantee you that there will be another one. Like Underdog tweeted out a couple weeks ago. Let me look at it, what exactly they said. I think they just tweeted out like puppy 4 and then like little eyeball emojis. But I think they're probably going to wait until Best Ball Mania fills. At least that's what I would assume. Of course, I have no idea. I'm talking out of my ass right now, as I usually do, but okay, so let's go ahead. Let's take Brian Robinson. I guess we're just going to monopolize every single touch here in Washington. If we don't have the starting running back with Antonio Gibson, if instead we drafted a punt returner, let's go ahead and let's take Brian Robinson here, 123. It is what it is. We just need to try to be getting running back touches here on a week-to-week basis. And in a 12-team private draft, I don't hate it as much as I would in another league. God, Underdog tweets a crap ton. I'm trying to scroll back to find this tweet, and it is tough. Okay, so after we take Robinson, you have Kenneth Gainwell going directly after. Okay, I think we're almost at the tweet, ladies and gentlemen. We're almost at the tweet. Okay, here's what Underdog tweeted out. Best ball summer rolls on. Pomeranian 3, $100,000 prize pool, August 22nd. We already went through that. It filled in a day. Pomeranian 4, $100,000 prize pool, August 29th. So that's in 2 days. Hell, we get the Pomeranian in 2 days. If y'all don't know what that is, it's like the puppy draft, $3 buy-in on Underdog Fantasy Tournament, $100,000 prize pool. And what's special about that? 0% rake. 0% rake. And then they said puppy 4, ... eye emoji. Like the eye emoji is looking sideways. So that's as much intel as I have on it. But so based on the tweet, it sounds like it's going to happen. I would assume that it doesn't until Best Ball Mania fills, or looks like it's guaranteed to fill. But I don't know. So Scary Hours coming out. It says a redraft 10 team, 1 quarterback, a format. We got Kyler, Najee, Leonard Fournette, J.K. Dobbins, Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, Michael Pittman, DJ Moore, Hollywood Brown, Chris Godwin, Elijah Moore, Darnell Mooney, Pat Frymuth. How did I do? Really like the team. The issue is in a 10-team redraft format, you're going to be able to find so many of these wide receivers at a value. Like you literally have Lamb, Pittman, DJ Moore, Hollywood Brown, Chris Godwin, Elijah Moore, Darnell Mooney. Darnell Mooney is your 7th receiver. You're never drafting the, you're never starting the man. Let's go ahead. Like, let's package one of these receivers like a Michael Pittman and a Pat Frymuth, and let's go get the elite level tight end. Let's go get the Mark Andrews with that type of package, especially if we're playing in this just shallow league like this. Great team. I mean, you say, was it JJ Justin Jefferson? So actually, let me recount this. Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, Michael Pittman, DJ Moore, Hollywood Brown, Chris Godwin, Elijah Moore, Darnell Mooney. I apologize. Darnell Mooney's your 8th wide receiver. Let's trade some of this wide receiver depth. Obviously, these are guys with a ton of upside. These are guys with a ton of value. Let's go get that upgrade at running back. This is why I specifically say for casual, shallow redraft leagues, you probably shouldn't be just pushing wide receivers up immediately in the first, second round. If we have those tier 2 running backs that have upside to an overall 1 finish, even if they have red flags in their profile, because you can load up on receivers late like this, and those casual, shallow redraft formats, probably a good idea to just take those receivers late. Now, Taylor coming out says, my first draft on Underdog. How am I doing? Pick 12. Okay, we have a couple first-time drafters on Underdog. I'll be happy to go through, check that out for you, my friend. After we make our own selections at 142 and 147, let's pull this back around. So we don't have any tight ends yet. We have at quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow. At running back, we have Antonio Gibson, Darrell Henderson, Brian Robinson. At receiver, we have Justin Jefferson, Mike Evans, T. Higgins, Gabriel Davis, Brandon Ayuk, and Sky Moore. Okay, so great for us seeing Tua Tagovailoa and Trevor Lawrence off the board. Great, great, great for us. Okay, so Bildo says 24-hour puppy 4 day on September 8th. Okay, I can't confirm if this is correct. Just where are your sources, my friend? Where are you getting this from? Let's go ahead. Let's take Rachaad White, 142. I mean, with Rachaad White, this could be a running back that has that role as a pass catcher. He was possibly the best pass catching running back in this year's NFL draft. And obviously, you would have the contingency upside for more if Leonard Fournette were to go down due to injury. Okay. And oh, crap. Ladies and gentlemen, the $250 draft filled. We're in the second round in the $250 draft. Let's go through. Let's queue up a couple of these guys and let's run over, check out. Oh my gosh. And we got a good value in that $250 draft. Let me show you all that in 1 second. Let me first look at this team here at 12 for Taylor. Adams, Najee, Sutton, Zeke, Kyler, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Tom Brady, TJ Hawkinson, Zach Ertz. I really like the team. I'd say in this format, it's probably difficult to take Kenneth Walker at the 109. Yeah, I like the team. I'm sorry we're not able to dive into this too much. We are literally in that $250 draft. Thank God for whoever said that we are about to be back up on the clock there. Oh my gosh. We ended up auto drafting the first one. But I'm not going to complain about this auto draft because we ended up getting Jonathan Taylor at the 103. We got JT at 103, so I'm not going to be crying too much about this. Oh my gosh. That would have been really bad if I didn't notice that we were in this until like the 4th round. Alvin Kamara off. Sutton goes 19. Aaron Jones 20. Okay, so we're going to go ahead. We're going to get Mark Andrews paired up with Jonathan Taylor. I think this is going to be a unique combo overall in this contest if we're looking at how the ADPs line up. Very excited about this first 2-round start. Derek Telesco, A.J. Brown over Mark Andrews, my man. I've already drafted A.J. Brown in decent amount of leagues. Maybe we go with them in the 3rd round. A.J. Brown goes 23. A.J. Brown goes 23 here. Michael Pittman off the board, 24. So it looks like this will be a league that decides to push up wide receiver values. So let's take either Evans or Tyreek Hill. I mean, almost an auto pick here when we know that these high-stakes drafters are going to take these receivers early. Let's go ahead. Let's get Mike Evans as our wide receiver one. I think that this is going to be a very unique combo so far through the first 3 rounds on an underdog build. We maybe are in a draft room like we see Michael Pittman, DJ Moore going off the board there at the 2-3 turn before Kyle Pitts. We see Sutton going off the board at pick 19. Maybe this room is going to skew extremely wide receiver heavy. Possibly not when you have Barkley at pick 6, Eckler at 7. Too early to tell, but we definitely need to possibly be keeping in mind that we should maybe not just lock in Lamar at pick 46. Maybe we need to go with the receiver. Okay. Leonard Fournette, 31. Okay, so never mind. Maybe that team at pick 7 is going to go through and fight back on the running backs. Look at how good that build is from 8. I would be so excited if through the first 3 rounds in a $250 draft, you were looking at Stephon Diggs, Joe Mixon, T. Higgins. That is unbelievable. I would be so excited about that. Adam says Mason gets a great start. Now all he needs to do is not mess up. Have you ever seen me have a great start and then not mess it up? I don't think it's happened yet. We've probably done 600 drafts this offseason. We will find a way to mess this up. I don't know how. I don't know how. Like it's a very, very strong start through the first 3 rounds. But I can almost guarantee you that we're going to find a way to mess it up. Okay. Han says, dude at the 106 is off a perk. Yeah, dude at the 106 is going a little wild. And I understand you can make the argument, oh, okay, well, in these tournament-style contests, you want to go through, you want to have a unique build. So, yes, not too many teams are going to have this. But in reality, if you want this trio of players, you can still get this unique build by going Saquon Barkley at the 1-2 turn, either in the late first, beginning of the second, go Courtland Sutton at the end of the third, and then reach on Jerry Jeudy at the beginning of the fourth. So you would still have this 3-player combo, but at the same time, you would have an additional first round option. Like, oh, that'd be a no-brainer. Okay, so in that other league, we're having to go through, we're having to find a running. It's so gross. We're having to go ahead and just take another rookie running back in the other draft. I don't even want to bring that up. So we have the team at 12 going ahead, taking Hollywood Brown and Juju Smith-Schuster. So what we were talking about, I have a feeling that this is going to be a very wide receiver heavy draft. I think it's going to be a very wide receiver heavy draft. Now, Houseway says, sup, Mason, can you explain the logic to why we would want to correlate quarterback and running back with a running quarterback like Lamar and Dobbins? Go Bears, keep it up. I don't necessarily think that it's something that's super exciting. Maybe if you're using it as a tiebreaker, but in the case of saying a Lamar Jackson and a J.K. Dobbins as an example, like I said, I don't necessarily want to come out here and go, oh my gosh, it's something you have to do. It's the most optimal thing ever. Yada, yada. Maybe if you were going to make an argument that they correlate, you get elite level offensive line play, and the Baltimore Ravens are top 3 in the NFL in points scored, and you can get some correlation in that fashion. I don't think it's going to be as important, especially if you don't expect the running back to have a large role in the passing game, which in this example, you don't. Okay. So now we have Waddle falling to 41. I would do anything in the world to trade our start with the pick at 108. I would do anything in the world to go and get Diggs, Mixon, Higgins, Waddle through the first 4. Oh, that is just beautiful. Brandon Cooks off 43, Allen Robinson 42. So I do think that you see these wide receivers continuing to go early. Let's see. What does Paul decide to do here? Is this the team that... What was the team that went... Barkley. Okay, yeah, Barkley goes Brandon Cooks. Sit here and let's think about this for a second. Obviously, your initial thought is when you go ahead and when you take Andrews to just fire up Lamar Jackson at the end of the 4th. This team has Javonte, Nick Chubb. They go Deontay Johnson. God dang it. Now that they go Deontay, I'm not necessarily too inclined to just go ahead and to reach on a receiver, because in reality, who would we be reaching on? We're going to be reaching on Bateman. Not really taking Bateman here. Let's go ahead. Let's take Lamar Jackson. Let's grab the elite level quarterback. I think we'll have a player that we like on the way back around in the fit. Let's see what happens. Let's take Bateman, 46. Of course, let me know what you would have done. Let me know what you would have done here. So far, this is our start through the first 4 rounds. Of course, this is a draft room that's going extremely receiver heavy. Henry says Deontay would have been so sweet. Yeah, I thought we were going to go ahead and take Deontay Johnson. That was my initial thought whenever we were about to be on the clock. I thought, okay, we go Deontay here. Then we end up possibly getting Lamar Jackson on the way back around to pick 51. But in reality, I'm not dying to have like Bateman at 46 and then try to get Lamar on the way back around at 51. Like we have Lamar Jackson here, and I still don't even want to take Rashad Bateman. Elijah Moore off the board, 49. See what Chill Bill decides to do. Amon-Ra St. Brown. Guys, this is tough. From a uniqueness standpoint, y'all know I don't like Ezekiel Elliott. Literally, Ezekiel Elliott's one of our do not draft players this year. He has an ADP of 39. I think if we're looking at unique builds in this tournament, not many teams are getting Ezekiel Elliott at 51, but at the same time, I'm not jumping up and down with this. I do not even know if this is the right pick. This could very easily be the wrong pick. Godwin could have been the right selection to correlate with Mike Evans, possibly get Tom Brady later on. I just think from an overall uniqueness standpoint in the tournament, this will be a 5 round. Oh my God. Do y'all? This is a $250 draft. This is a look at what just happened. Is this 2020? Okay, I'm a lot more excited about our Ezekiel Elliott selection. I'll say that. Tex Op says, should I drop James Cook or Isaiah Pacheco for Brian Robinson? Flog Nation, thank you so much for supporting the channel. Up to you. If I were to go ahead and drop one of these guys, I would drop Isaiah Pacheco before James Cook. In reality, I was talking about this earlier on the live stream. With Isaiah Pacheco in particular, I feel like I have been very hypocritical where I was fine drafting Ronald Jones in like the 12th, 13th round earlier on this offseason. My thought process is, yeah, we know that Ronald Jones is a very bad running back, but it may not matter if he is playing with the Kansas City Chiefs. So we went through and we decided to take a decent amount of Rojo, and clearly that did not work out. And with Isaiah Pacheco, I don't necessarily think Isaiah Pacheco is a very talented player, but at the same time, if he's in that Ronald Jones role, does it matter? Probably not. So I'm not a massive Pacheco fan, but I will admit that I probably have been just very hypocritical with our analysis of him. I don't think he's a good option, but I think that really the only thing that matters is if Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes believe in him enough to give him snaps in that Kansas City Chiefs offense. Okay, we're on the clock. It's in that other draft. Let's go ahead and let's take Taysom Hill. Okay, so Bateman falls all the way to 58, as well as Chris Godwin. Very interesting, because I thought we were going to have a lot of these receivers off the board immediately. That Saquon Barkley team decides to go out there, plant their flag on A.J. Dillon, pick 54. I mean, it probably great for us. Like, what we want at this point is we want to be able to go receiver on the way back around. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for receiver. I think that we are going to have a good shot to come away with someone like Drake London at the end of the 6th now. But we'll see. We'll see. Yeah, someone says Team 8 is so bad. Are you kidding me? Team 8 is beautiful here. Like, I would much prefer to have Team 8's team than ours. I think Team 8 is by far and away the best team in this draft. By far and away. So you have the team at 12 deciding to go Jalen Hurts, Trey Lance. We have done the same thing in these high-stakes drafts. Not Lance. Instead, we have gone Kyler Murray, but going with back-to-back elite-level QBs there. I think you do have access to a unique build, and at the same time, you're not necessarily sacrificing too much upside to go that route. Okay, so let's swing this back around. This is why we are wanting to pass on Ezekiel Elliott. Look at these running backs available. Zach coming out says, I have second pick in an 8-team PPR format. Who do I take? JT obviously will be gone. And what advice for you would have in drafting in an 8-team league? Very boring advice, my friend. In an 8-team format, you slide up elite level tight ends. Wide receivers almost don't even matter if you only have like 1 to 2 flex spots, just because it's going to be so easy to find them later on. We just saw another message from someone in the live chat who in a similar format had Darnell Mooney as his wide receiver 8. So it's very different than Underdog, where obviously it's very hard to pass on wide receivers in this league. Whereas in that one, I think we probably go ahead. We take CMC at pick 2. We probably reach on getting like a Mark Andrews in the second. Okay. Or maybe you even get Kelsey if it's an 8-team format. You may get Kelsey in the second round. Well, let's see what happens here. I don't want to queue up exactly what we're doing just in case someone's watching this live stream. But this team on the clock is Aaron Jones. They go Ayuk. Okay, Ayuk would have been in play. And I know, guys, I get it. We were talking about going a wide receiver at the 6-7 turn. Cam Akers pick 70. Like, talking about having a unique build overall, I think that we are going to get access to that very unique combo. If we go Cam Akers pick 70, how many teams in this tournament contest are going to be able to have this value on Cam Akers at running back? 100% now that we see Cam Akers is making it back to us a big 70. I think that if we could go back in a time machine, even though Ezekiel Elliott falls like 11, 12 picks past his ADP, we don't take Zeke there. Instead, we go ahead, we take Chris Godwin or Rashad Bateman, and we don't even think twice about it. If we could go back in that time machine, we 100% change that Ezekiel Elliott selection now that we're looking at running backs falling this far, which we were worried that they were going to. Well, let's see what happens now. Now, Chill Bills on the clock. They decided to go ahead and take Drake London in the last round. They go Elijah Mitchell here. Let's just go ahead. Let's take Amari Cooper. Yes, we're taking Amari Cooper over and Alan Lazard. I think that this will be a team that we're possibly fine to go ahead and to fire up a 3 QB build, and we could potentially get Deshaun Watson at the very end and have that correlation in for weeks 15, 16, 17. Don't love Amari Cooper. I really don't like Alan Lazard. I'd rather take Christian Watson later on. So let's go Amari Cooper because we need a receiver. It's as simple as we need a wide receiver. And if we would have taken Dobbins, we would have had, if we would have had Dobbins available to us at pick 70, trust me, we would have taken J.K. Dobbins. Now, Christian Kirk off the board here, 76. Very interested to see how this draft goes from here. So that team that decided to go Miles Sanders in the 5th follows it up with Dalton Schultz at 69. Let's look at what the Saquon Barkley 106 team decides to do. They go Damian Pierce at pick 78. Good for us. Get these running backs off the board. Good for us. Get these running backs off. Dog79 says teammate has the whole Bengals offense without Burrow. Definitely unique. And definitely, if you are also looking at it, they, at the same time, have Stephon Diggs. So, you could say, oh my gosh, well, they have that week 17 correlation. Obviously, everybody's so excited about that week 17 correlation. In reality, I don't think it matters as much as people are making it out to be, but still, I think that's a team that you're very excited about in a vacuum. Okay. So now we have Devonta Smith, DeAndre Hopkins going off the board here at 80, 81. Alan Lazard's still available. Alan Lazard's still falling. Has been best available for ever since we took Amari Cooper. Elijah Mitchell had an ADP higher than him, but very rarely are you seeing these other wide receivers go before Alan Lazard. Okay. Clyde Edwards-Helaire goes 83. Yeah, let's look at this draft board. Jacobs is still available. There's a chance we get Jacobs on the way back around. Yeah, this team so far 8 rounds deep, no running backs. So they're definitely going through, trying their best to make this work. Obviously, if you hit on a couple elite level running backs, like in Alexander Madison, Dalvin Cook goes down, or you just cycle through some weeks with guys like Nyheim Hines, obviously it's a team with a crap ton of upside in this format in particular. But I don't know. Personally, that's my build, and we have Jacobs in the 8th. I'd probably take Jacobs in the 8th. Okay. Joe says, I think he will go crazy with the 24-hour draft. Yeah, I'm assuming everybody knows this in the live stream, but we said if we hit 90,000 subscribers before the season starts, which realistically speaking, I think Thomas put the deadline with all the videos September 4th. That way we could plan for it and we actually know that it's going to happen. So we have from September 4th 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 days to get there. And at this pace, we are going to. And I have no idea how it will happen. I don't know how I'll do a 24-hour live stream, but I will definitely go crazy. And Pumps 47, thank you for always coming out, my man. It says, got offered Saquon Barkley, Travis Etienne, Tyler Lockett for my Jonathan Taylor and any depth wide receiver. My running back two is Chase Edmonds. Should I pull the trigger? No, you shouldn't. In a shallow redraft format, keep JT. Keep JT. Lockett's never doing anything for you here. I'm not trading Jonathan Taylor and Saquon Barkley for Travis Etienne. Keep Jonathan Taylor in this format. Okay. But Tony Pollard off the board, 87. Edmonds, 88. Ramondre Stevenson off as well. So let's pull this back around. There are a couple players that y'all know I like here. I mean, one guy I'd be very excited about getting. I think it would make this team incredibly unique. But George Pickens off the board. Is this the Saquon Barkley team? Yeah, that was the Saquon Barkley team. Goes George Pickens here at 91. Jacobs off 92. We aren't getting Jacobs at 94. That would have been pretty funny if that ended up happening. Marcus Valdez-Scantling off the board. Let's go ahead. Let's just take Sky Moore. In reality, I really do like TJ Hawkinson here, but if we look at Chill Bill right after us, they already have Kyle Pitts and George Kittle, so they can't take TJ Hawkinson. I think there's a decent shot that we get Hawkinson on the way back around. I mean, at this point, we probably need to just add in a third wide receiver. I think Sky Moore could have the elite level ceiling weeks 15, 16, 17 that we're searching for. So let's go ahead. Let's take Sky Moore. Probably a pretty easy pick. And then after that, I don't exactly know what we're going for. Let's see. So let me recap our draft right after this. And yeah, guys, this is a $250 draft. So there's some serious pressure. There's some serious pressure in this league. Kareem Hunt off 97. Damian Harris off as well. We're going to go ahead. We're going to take Robert Woods. Based on what the rest of this draft room has done, I think that we need to lock in these wide receivers while we can. Like, let's go through. So far, at running back, we have Jonathan Taylor, Ezekiel Elliott, and Cam Akers. At tight end, we have an elite level option, Mark Andrews. We have an elite level quarterback with Lamar Jackson as well. And then sitting at receiver, we have Mike Evans, Amari Cooper, Sky Moore, and Robert Woods. So we are going to hope that we can find some more wide receiver depth a little later on so we can cycle through these guys at the bottom end. But still, we are very thin at receiver. We're very thin at receiver. Obviously need more options. That's why we go Robert Woods here without really thinking about it. I don't think it's the worst receiver core in the world if we get a Sky Moore breakout. Okay. Eli says, where do you rank Joe Mixon among running backs? With Joe Mixon, he's in that tier 2 of guys. I mean, guys that all have serious red flags, but also access to elite level ceilings, in my opinion. He's in that tier with Derrick Henry, Najee Harris, Dalvin Cook. I think you can rank them in any order you want, my friend. Just as long as they're behind JT, CMC. And recently we have moved Eckler from tier 2. I used to not be a massive Eckler guy, but now that you have the Isaiah Spiller injury, I think it's going to be completely fine to go ahead and draft him. Okay, so Rondale Moore off the board, 105. And yeah, it's funny because I have been drafting Austin Eckler lately at pick 6. But if you go back and look at our drafts earlier on in the offseason, we were taking Stephon Diggs there quite comfortably, just because of the format, of course. So I am a little bit worried about Eckler. We were talking about the serious red flags that he had regarding his overall touchdown regression you may see in this offense, combined with the fact that, hell, he's an older, undersized running back. Like, there's some serious red flags. But with the injury to Isaiah Spiller, I think you have to be a lot more excited. And right now I have Austin Eckler in a whopping 4% of drafts. We have Eckler in 4%. So there's a chance if he does go out there, if he scores 15 touchdowns this year, he scored 20 last year, we get crushed. But I think there's a lot of uncertainty. Just now that Isaiah Spiller is not someone we have to worry about, I think he is better. So now we have Antonio Gibson going off the board, 109. Derek Carr, 110. Derek Carr wasn't someone we're looking at. Of course, Derek Carr is sitting there at the top of ADP, but in reality, I mean, we are fine just going ahead and passing on him. So let's pull this up. And what? That team decided to go Penny and Gibson as their first 2 running backs with this build. Okay. I mean, obviously getting Penny and Gibson falling dramatically according to ADP. Okay, so Cole Kmet off the board here, 112. Cordell Patterson goes 113. I don't want to speak too much just in case there are people watching this live stream in this draft. Team on the clock goes Isaiah McKenzie, 115. That's the team that's just been all over the board. They're just getting their guys. Paul on the clock. So far, quarterback, he has Tom Brady, Aaron Jones, Josh Jacobs. He has Darren Waller at tight end as well. Wonder if he was hoping that he was going to get Derek Carr on the way back around. Wide receiver, he's loaded. He has Chase, Tyreek, Terry McLaurin, Brandon Ayuk, and Tyler Lockett. Okay, so Rodgers off. Let's see what Max decides to do here. I think he can go either way. He goes Claypool. Based on the draft board, we're going to go ahead. We're going to take Garrett Wilson. We are going to bring him in here as our wide receiver 5. I think we're completely fine with any of these running backs on the way back around. I'd be surprised if these teams just load up on running back after running back after running back. This team has CMC, Elijah Mitchell, and Damian Harris. This team has J.K. Dobbins, David Montgomery, and Kareem Hunt. So right now we stand with Lamar at quarterback, Andrews at tight end, at running back, Jonathan Taylor, Ezekiel Elliott, Cam Akers, and a receiver we have Mike Evans, Amari Cooper, Sky Moore, Robert Woods, and Garrett Wilson. So yeah, you have Russell Gage directly off here at 119 as well. We were assuming that these receivers were going to continue to go. So I think we probably made the right call to take Garrett Wilson here. Singletary off finally at 120. Singletary is the player that I think should be going down, given the fact that you should have James Cook with getting pretty much every single target out of this backfield. And if, it's crazy to say, but if Zach Moss is involved at all, God knows what the floor is with that situation. Let's go ahead. Do we just take Melvin Gordon? We're going to take Walker 123. Obviously, there's a lot of uncertainty with Kenneth Walker. If we're going to look at a median projection, I think that you do have Melvin Gordon outscoring Walker on in a decent amount of outcomes this upcoming year. Obviously, you have the contingency value with the possible injury to a Javonte Williams, making Melvin Gordon the top 10 running back in that offense. But at the same time, 4 out of 12 teams make the playoffs in this format. If 4 out of 12 teams, I really make the playoffs, I really think we should be optimizing for the fantasy football playoff stretch. And I think Kenneth Walker should be the starting running back down the stretch for the Seattle Seahawks, given the team investment he has into him, given the injury history to Rashad Penny. So let's go ahead. Let's take Kenneth Walker here. I'm not too excited about this. Not too excited. I think the call is definitely between the running backs. Like, it's either Kenneth Walker or Melvin Gordon, up to you. If it was a private draft like we usually do on the live streams at the very beginning, like it's just a $3 draft among the 12 teams in the league as cumulative scoring, there we go, Melvin Gordon. In this tournament style contest where we're trying to optimize for the final 3 weeks, there I think we go Kenneth Walker. Okay. So we have DJ Chark off the board 130 here. Let's see what this team needs. I think we're probably going to go 5 running backs with this build. I mean, I definitely think we're going to go 5 RBs. We have Jonathan Taylor, Ezekiel Elliott. We got Cam Akers falling to us a big 70. And then we have Kenneth Walker 123. So I think we are set up to only have to draft 5 of those guys. We have the elite level quarterback Lamar, the elite level tight end Andrews. So we only have to take 2 quarterbacks, 2 tight ends if we want. So if we wanted, we could draft 9 wide receivers with this build. We have Evans, Amari Cooper, Sky Moore, Robert Woods, Garrett Wilson. It's not the best wide receiver core in the world, but I mean, it's all right. I think based on the value we got at running back in particular, like, I'm not a massive Zeke guy, but Ezekiel in the 5th round, I feel like at some point, hell, let's just take it. Let's have the unique combo. And then Akers at 70. I love Akers at 70. I have nothing negative to say about that. Now, Tua Tagovailoa off the board 136. I'm not going to be looking forward to with this build. There'd be no reason for us to take Tua Tagovailoa. Jalen Tolbert falling. Jalen Tolbert should be falling. Like, his ADP was out of control. At one point, he had an ADP literally looking like he was going to cross before Garrett Wilson. Like, people were drafting Jalen Tolbert. I don't even want to go down that road. Do y'all remember where Jalen Tolbert was getting drafted 2 weeks ago? Do y'all remember that? Eli says, who is starting, Penny or Walker? Penny at the beginning of the season. Okay, Isaiah Pacheco goes 139. Paul on the clock. So if we were to take a running back, it would be our last running back we draft. So Paul is Brady, Rodgers at running back, Jones, Jacobs, Melvin Gordon. Love the Melvin Gordon value they got. I really like their team overall. I mean, I don't necessarily understand why they decided to go Tom Brady with this build, but from an overall standpoint, I really like their team. Okay. So Max on the clock. I personally know who I want. What's the report with Brian Robinson? No report. He's just falling a crap ton. Brian Robinson, ADP 123, on the clock at 142. Who do you want at this point? Brian Robinson or Pat Freiermuth? Spam the chat. So at tight end, we have Andrews. Running back, we have Jonathan Taylor, Ezekiel Elliott, Cam Akers, Kenneth Walker. Once we take one of these guys, we're not drafting another one the rest of the way. We're not drafting another running back the rest of the way if we take Brian Robinson. We're not drafting another tight end the rest of the way if we take Pat Freiermuth. Okay. Looks like most people are voting Pat Freiermuth. Yeah, looks like it was kind of 50-50. Some people were saying Alberto. I think based on the preseason usage with Alberto, that's enough to scare me away from him. Let's go ahead. Let's take Pat Freiermuth. I think if we're looking at the natural progression you should have going into year two, of course, we're concerned about the overall passing volume in Pittsburgh. We're concerned about the passing efficiency as well. I think it'll be a fine pick at 142. And then let's move this down. Yeah, Michael Carter going directly after 143. Jalen Tolbert goes as well. Was there an update with Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson in Washington? I'd imagine not, because if there was an update that like, oh no, Brian Robinson doesn't look like he has a chance to be the starting running back, then Antonio Gibson would have gone higher than 109, right? Gibson would have gone higher than 109. Chill Bill, they took Michael Carter there in the last rounds. They have Kirk Cousins at quarterback. Maybe we see a KJ Osborne selection since they have Kirk Cousins. They took Cousins. They don't have anybody else for Minnesota. I'd imagine you have to go Osborne then. Yeah, they go KJ Osborne. We're going to go ahead. We're going to take Brian Robinson. We're getting about 2.5 rounds behind ADP. Obviously, we need receivers. Trust me, guys, I get it. But I think now we are going to be done drafting RB. We're done drafting tight end. We can hammer in these receivers from here on out. We're going to draft a minimum 8 of these guys and probably 9. Okay. But Sal says, good job with the Fantasy Pros. Recommended any wide receiver stacks. Thank you, my friend. I'd say some quarterback wide receiver stacks we could be going after. In casual leagues, it's a lot easier than these high stakes drafts. Where in these high stakes drafts, you're looking at Trey Lance, 61. But in your casual format, like Lance has an ADP of like QB 10. That's literally just free money. Take Lance with either Kittle, Deebo Samuel, or Brandon Ayuk, whoever you want. Beyond that, if we're going to be looking at someone maybe for a high stakes draft, I understand, like, obviously this is specifically for like an underdog, a deeper league. I think your shallow redraft, we go 49ers. Underdog, a deeper format. I like going Rodgers at his ADP and then Christian Watson at his later on. Cheeky Option says, the punt god released. Punt god. I think I saw something about that. I'm uncertain. Is that the like Bills punter that had allegations against? I'm assuming. But let's go to our next one. Gassan coming out. Thank you. Says, hey Mason, happy PR, super flex. Rate quarterback. We have Justin Fields, Russell Wilson, Jared Goff, Jordan Love. Okay, Dynasty. Running backs, Najee Harris, Javonte Williams, Melvin Gordon, James Cook, Isaiah Spiller, Hassan Haskins. Wide receiver, Debo, DK Metcalf, Devonta Smith, Christian Watson, Jacoby Myers. Tight end, we have Freiermuth, Cole Kmet, Brevin Jordan. I like the team overall. Obviously, you are hinging a lot on what you may get from Justin Fields this upcoming season. Last year, I was a massive Justin Fields hater. I think given his rushing upside, he's a more reasonable selection at this point. Just given the fact that maybe if he can turn into Jalen Hurts, where he's not a great real-life NFL quarterback, or the situation fails him, but he has enough rushing upside to get you there, he can still be a fine selection in a dynasty league. And what I would say is also, with Justin Fields, based on the hype he's had in dynasty before, and based on the name value alone, if he were to have just a strong half season here, dear God, if he's good for half a year, You could easily see him going back up and being worth a second round startup pick. So I like the team in a vacuum. Obviously, you have 2 top 5 running backs from a dynasty fantasy football context. There's not too much to say. I think you're well balanced for the future as well as this season. I think we kind of wait until we're weeks 5, 6, 7, kind of figure out if this team needs to go win now, if this team needs to go ahead and play for 2023, and then make moves. I wish I could help you out, my friend. I like that team a lot more, though. Okay. T-shirt says, in a $5 puppy draft, I just got Cooper Kupp at 7. There's no puppy drafts going on right now, my man. There are no puppy drafts. Gassan, yeah, thank you again. I wish I could help you out more. I genuinely do. But there's not much for me to say, to be honest. Okay, I love the players in this range. I freaking love who we are going to get here for our overall format. For our overall build, love what we are looking at this point. Okay, but Paul on the clock. It goes KJ Hamler. KJ Hamler was going to be one of those guys that we really wanted. Still think we get someone that we're excited about. What's the report on Christian Watson? Status still uncertain. We're drafting him for weeks 15, 16, 17. We do have a lot of rookie receivers. Obviously, this is a team that the production at the beginning portion of the year may not be great. Oh my gosh, yeah. Production at the beginning portion of the season is not going to be great with this team. At receiver, we have Sky Moore, Garrett Wilson, Christian Watson. Jameson Williams goes 167. So this team probably saves us from ourselves. Where I would have gone ahead, I probably would have drafted Jameson Williams if he made it back around to us at 171, just given the upside that we could have for the final 3-week stretch there. Hayden Hurst off the board, 168. Great for us. Love seeing these tight ends go. We can't take running back. We can't take tight end. We can go quarterback. We can go receiver. Those are the 2 positions we're looking at. J.D. McKissick off 169. Could make the argument that Matt Ryan's fallen 14 picks. We made the bet on Jonathan Taylor. We can get Paris Campbell later on. Do we go ahead and take Matt Ryan here? In a vacuum, I prefer Daniel Jones. Tannehill. Do we just go Marvin? Let's go ahead. Let's take Marvin Jones. It's a very boring selection. I think that we're going to be locked into taking 3 quarterbacks, even though we took Lamar Jackson because we waited so long on our second guy. So let's just get a wide receiver that I think can front load some of this production for us. Yeah, so we already have a ton of upside later on this season. Let's go Marvin Jones, and we can bring in 3 quarterbacks with this build. But let me recap, just in case you are just now coming into the stream. And if you are just now coming into the live stream, make sure you go down there and drop a like in the stream. If this stream hits 600 likes, we're going to be firing up another draft after this one. So please go down there, drop a like, go sign up for Underdog Fantasy. Link in the description, link in the live chat if you want to join our next draft after this one. Our next draft after this, probably not going to be a $250 draft. Instead, it's just going to be a $3 private draft that I can send a link out in the live chat. But so far, running back, our entire running back core is done. We have Jonathan Taylor, Ezekiel Elliott, Cam Akers, Kenneth Walker, Brian Robinson. Quarterback, we have Lamar Jackson alone. At tight end, we have Mark Andrews as well as Pat Frymuth. And then at receiver, we have Mike Evans, Amari Cooper, Sky Moore, Robert Woods, Garrett Wilson, Christian Watson, and Marvin Jones. So we're in an interesting spot where I do think we have a lot of wide receiver upside later on in the year if we get a breakout from 2 of Garrett Wilson, Christian Watson, Sky Moore. But at the same time, the beginning portion of the season, it's going to be tough to overcome. But 4 teams make the playoffs here. This isn't going to be a situation where only 2 teams advance. So I do think that we are highly incentivized to just prioritize those guys that could have the upside for the final 3-week stretch. Okay, so Sammy Watkins off the board, 177. Zay Jones goes. I wonder if, honestly, there are not too many sticky points where I think, oh, we could have gone a couple different ways. Maybe the Ezekiel Elliott pick, we could have gone ahead. We could have taken Chris Godwin. But I think one of those selections that this draft's going to hinge on is going to be our decision to take Marvin Jones over Matt Ryan. I think that is very important. So we see Jerick McKinnon off the board at 181. So that team goes ahead, rostering a crap ton of running backs here. I mean, as Rashad Penny, Antonio Gibson, Naheem Hines, Alexander Madison, Khalil Herbert, Zamir White, Jerry McKinnon. Obviously, you can get away with rostering 7 running backs if your receiver core is consisting of CeeDee Lamb, Deebo Samuel, Hollywood Brown, Juju, and I don't know. I understand people significantly smarter than me say that this is the way you should be going ahead and drafting. I have a very hard time doing it. I personally have a very hard time doing that. So let's swing this back around. You have Daniel Jones off the board here, 183. Even if we didn't have a New York Giant, I probably would have gone ahead. I probably would have taken Daniel Jones, just given the fact that you're looking at him as a quarterback that has that rushing upside. Could have maybe gone 18th round Sterling Shepard. I don't know. But let's see what instead we're going to want. So quarterbacks that would correlate with our picks here. Tannehill with Woods. That's about it. Obviously, we're looking for the guy that we've been drafting a crap ton of. Y'all don't need me to tell you that. Let's check out that team at the 108. This team at the 108 had a beautiful start. A beautiful start. Actually, let's make our selections, and we'll go and check their team out. Okay. Nate says, what's the next draft going to be? If we are going to go ahead and we are going to fire up a $3 draft after this one. I think it'll be a $3 draft after this. Okay, so Brevin Jordan off a 187. Tyrion Davis Price goes. Let's think through this. We're going to take Watson here. Obviously, you don't do this in a private draft. Obviously, you don't do this in a casual redraft league, but in these tournament-style contests where we're optimizing for weeks 15, 16, 17, I think Watson could be the quarterback one during that time period. And based on the performance of Malik Willis tonight, I think that we're almost guaranteed to get we're almost guaranteed to get Tannehill on the way back around. So Goff goes 192. Let's go ahead. Let's take Tannehill. Obviously, a lot of people are excited that Malik Willis flashes some good play today. Tannehill does correlate with Robert Woods. We do need to sneak a Deshaun Watson team through here, so I think we need we need 2 QBs through the first 11 weeks. So let's go ahead. Let's take it. I don't know if this team has enough firepower to get it done. We need some rookie breakouts. It's going to be very difficult to have enough production specifically at the beginning portion of the season. But we have Lamar, Watson, Tannehill at quarterback. Tight end, we have Andrews, Frymuth. Running back, we have Taylor, Zeke, Akers, Kenneth Walker, Brian Robinson. And then at receiver, we have Mike Evans, Amari Cooper stacked up with Deshaun Watson, Sky Moore, Robert Woods. So that's our 4th receiver, Robert Woods, 5th receiver, Garrett Wilson, 6th receiver, Christian Watson, 7th receiver, Marvin Jones. We're going to bring in an 8th guy. So obviously we need one of these rookies panning out. Okay. So let's swing this back around. We have Jeff Wilson off the board here, 202. Good for us. Just anything that we can have a receiver making a back that we like. There's one wide receiver that y'all know I really want. I don't necessarily know how likely we are actually to get him, but we'll see. Chris Evans goes 203. Should see. I'm assuming this team here at the turn 17-18 goes double receiver. Actually, who else do they have at tight end? They have Goddard and Taysom Hill. Personally, I would go with the 3rd tight end. But I'm wrong all the time, so let's see what they do. Quez Watkins, 204 to get the unique stack up there with Jalen Hurts. I think maybe it makes a lot more sense like a puppy draft, best ball mania, where it's a much larger field and you are trying to get those unique picks here at the very end. Obviously, it's still great, but I don't know how important it is. So let's scroll this back around. Okay. I just wish we knew something about Will Fuller. I truly wish we knew something about Will Fuller. Brian Edwards goes 206. Brian Edwards not someone I'm looking at. Yeah, I just don't see anything regarding Will Fuller. We have a lot of people coming out saying cut Anthony Schwartz to pick up Will Fuller. I mean, Will Fuller would be just a significantly better version of the field stretching Anthony Schwartz there in Cleveland. Don't know how realistic it actually is. Okay, so hear me out on this. Actually, no, I think we have a no-brainer pick. We're going to go ahead. We're going to take Donovan Peoples-Jones. I actually kind of prefer David Bell over Donovan Peoples-Jones, if I'm going to be honest with you. But in reality, if we're looking at this build, we have Sky Moore not really giving us much production at the beginning of the season, or at least we can assume. Garrett Wilson not really giving us much production. Christian, we can't afford to take another rookie wide receiver. I don't want a fourth rookie receiver. I mean, our seventh rookie total on this team. So let's go ahead. Let's take someone that can be that field stretching option. Hopefully provide us a spike week during the beginning portion of the year as well. But we have Zach coming out. Says my 8th pick changed to the 4th pick in an 8-team PPR. Who do I take? Maybe Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase. Honestly, my friend, like, if it was this format, if it was Underdog Fantasy where you start 3 wide receivers, yes, I agree. You go wide receiver round 1. You go wide receiver 1 because round 1, you're going to be able to find value later on. But if you're playing in like an 8-team casual redraft league, in my opinion, there's really no reason to go ahead to take Jefferson or Chase there. I think you go with a running back. I think you go with your favorite tier 2 running back. You take a tier 1 guy if a Jonathan Taylor, if a Christian McCaffrey falls. You take an elite level tight end in round 2 just because it's going to be so easy for you to find wide receiver upside later on. So easy in that format in particular. But looks like we are going to be ending the live stream here. A little bit of a shorter draft tonight. I mean, we went over 2 hours, but thank you. I appreciate all of you so damn much. You know, we're going to be live streaming again tomorrow night, the night after that, the night after that, the night after that. I will send a link out to our, actually, it's going to be hard for me to grab that link. I'll just send it here. Thank you. I appreciate you. If you want to get our next draft, go sign up for Underdog Fantasy. Link in the chat. Use promo code FLOCK. And I'll see you out with the draft tomorrow night. We have a video